Good evening, all, and welcome to the Monday, February 25th, regular meeting of the Town of Easton Planning and Zoning Board. As always, we are going out live or being recorded on ECAT. So let's see. I know our town planner, Stephanie Danielson, is down participating in the Selectmen's meeting, so we'll just jump in and maybe she'll join us at some point. So first up is going to be a continued site plan review for 924 Washington Street. All right, meeting minutes. Wow.
Greg Driscoll of PMP Associates, Jacob Driscoll Engineering Company, for David Hines today.
Oh. Grab a mic. You can take this one.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
You can take it out of its thing if you want. Play lounge singer.
So Greg Driscoll of PMP Associates here tonight for David Hines, DS Ventures Inc. for the Contractor Bay project at 924 Washington Street. Since we last met, we met with the fire department out at the site. We provided a truck turning plan that they requested. It's out here somewhere. And got feedback from the fire department that they were okay with the fact that the trucks can pull in unencumbered. And just this afternoon, we met with the neighbor that owns this property regarding the redoing their entrance as part of our project. There's a letter that she sent in this afternoon. Copies here, I believe, to the site as well.
I've seen it.
Okay.
It's online. It's loaded up.
And in addition to all that, we addressed all the comments from Woodard and Curran, and I believe we have a clean bill of health from them for their last comment letter. And just real quick, the comments from the neighbor is they wanted us to just show a little bit of curb return right here that we had kind of, at this point, we're just going straight out to the existing edge of pavement. They want us to kind of smooth that out a little bit, so we did that. This is a rough draft revision right here. And she also wanted us to put a 6-foot vinyl fence along that property line. So it'll be in the final revision of the plans. So, fence and just right there.
It's not on them now.
Yeah, this is, I
Okay. No, that's fine. So we just.
draft right here, so.
Well, it's not a public hearing anyway, so we don't have to close it. Okay.
So, just figured I would show you, kind of point out a couple of things that
Sure.
she wanted. And my client is agreeable to those requests. If you want to go through the comment letter or just a lot of it's, I guess we could skip over some of the, I don't know if you want to go through the comment letter from Woodard and Curran, some of the stuff we addressed. I mean, it's.
Is that a new comment letter?
No, that they sent back.
Oh.
They
pretty much.
So they respond, Driscoll responded to the comments from Woodard and Curran. They reviewed them and said they had no further comments, which means you're all set.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need to go through it then.
So
that's it.
pretty
Okay.
much
All right.
summary of what we've done.
So how are we gonna? So who's performing the work on the abutter's property? Is your client going to do that, or?
Yes. That's
Okay. So if and when we get to a point of approving this, or when we get to the point of approving this, we'll have to
Would
figure
be a
out how we're gonna
condition.
word that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
we'll
what will. How do we we'll just have to incorporate a note or something just to make sure it's done. And I know we have. I guess this is probably a good time. We have in the bylaw it talks about we don't do this often, but at the end, towards the end of the project, prior to occupancy, planning board's supposed to check in on it. So this might be one to check in on and make sure that that gets done, just so that that steps in place, so that
okay.
you know. So Stephanie, do you have anything? I'm sorry.
No,
You good?
they addressed the outstanding issues. I think at the previous meetings, we talked about the landscaping and what should be done there. Again, the captain met Mr. Driscoll on site.
Yep.
And walked the site and was in agreement with the changes that were made, so.
Okay. And I see the changes on the landscaping. Board members, anybody have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I was waiting for the landscaping to,
To load?
yes, to render on that screen. So what were the changes to the rain garden landscaping area? Just
It's on mine.
So,
Yeah, well, just point them out on the plan.
yeah, that was pretty much reworked, reduced the size a little bit, to give some more area for the landscaping right up against the street, which would screen that side, end of the building more, which was desired. And I think, I'd have to go back through the calculations, but I think they increased the size of this a little bit to reduce that. And I think your comments, Stephanie, about the tree species was addressed, okay.
Looks like you added some plantings on the side of the building
Yeah.
too, on the southern side, right?
Yeah,
I don't
right along
think
here.
those, yeah, in the front.
Couple there.
It's
Yeah,
changed. It looks
definitely
like
right
the shape of the rain garden has changed, right, to follow the topo on that southern corner. Looks like you changed and added some planting in there.
And there's plantings in the rain garden as well, obviously, so.
So is the only thing missing on the plan basically that fence that you just discussed?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess if we were to make a motion, after, if you guys have any questions, but we could just include that in
include
it.
the
No sense
fence.
having another meeting for that. You could just send that plan in.
And you wanted to include the follow-up meeting in the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, or in the decision, or, yeah, in the motion too, yeah. Yeah, we should refer to it. But is there anybody, do you guys, any questions over here?
I'm good.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody? All right. So, if we're ready to go.
Do we need a motion to close the public hearing?
No, it's just site plan.
Oh, it's just site.
Right, this is just site plan review, isn't it?
Right, I'll make a motion to approve the plan, which noting that 6-foot high vinyl chain link fence will be added between this property and the abutting property, and that the planning board will conduct follow-up review to confirm the completion of work on the entrance for the adjacent driveway.
Second.
Any further discussion? Excuse me, hearing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So you'll get that revised plan to Stephanie?
I will.
So we can sign it at our next meeting?
Yep.
All right,
Sounds good.
thank you.
2 hard copies?
Good luck.
Thanks.
Do us proud.
I will.
All right, next up is, I know it's 300 Turnpike, I just can't find my agenda. So. Yeah, 300 Turnpike. Is that what I said? That's what I said. Special permit, 19141. I mean, site plan review, not special permit, site plan. What was that?
Bruce Pilling from Pilling Land Surveying. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago. We discussed, it's an existing car dealership. We had concerns about lighting.
Can I just interrupt just for a second?
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure, I had it a second ago, and now it just pixelated. So what's the last revision date on the plan? Is it February 14th? Is that what I just
February
saw?
14th.
Okay. So if this decides to load, I'll have it. Go ahead, sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's all right. So I added the lighting to it. We also talked about adding, there is no landscaping on the property. It's all, basically all paved, other than the very edges. There are a couple of trees over here and stuff like that. So we added some proposed landscaping in front of the building. It's gonna be just areas of landscaping up at the building with low-growing shrubs, because on the windows are gonna be there.
Sure, sure.
There and there. So we added that in there. Also, I looked at the layout of the building, and the best I can make out, it's about 28 feet high. There was a question about the height, but I can't tell you exactly within inches, but it's to the peak, not to
Right.
the,
Yeah, no, when it's actually to the average,
yeah, if
Right.
the average
Yeah.
in here, it's
yeah, so that's
below that. So it's about 28 feet to here from the ground. Up, it's 27 something from the finished floor in there. And drainage, I modified the O&M thing. There are no catch basins within the site. I walked the whole site again, looking under cars and watching. It was right after the rain, so it was that. It pitches from here, basically back, all the way down, going into there. There was no water running off. There was some small puddles. This is almost where the high point is right along where they've got the curving out in the front here. This is a little higher where they put the new septic system in. It goes up a little bit and then goes down there, but there are no catch basins in the street along that section, and there are no catch basins on that. You still have the roof drain to take care of the whole thing, to infiltrate it into the ground.
one of the most extensive stormwater management presentations I think we've ever had at this board. No, especially like this.
Oh, yeah,
We call that active topography.
it goes like
I
that.
just bought a new car, so I've been listening to the way they word everything. You know, so that was active topography. So.
I got another copy if you want.
So was that, I know we had, so we had the lights, we had the landscaping, was there anything else?
The height
The height,
Height,
and clarification
on
on
the
the
stormwater.
stormwater.
and did that just qualify as clarification for the
Well,
stormwater?
the documents just came in, I think they just came in today.
well, I uploaded them last week. I asked if you wanted to bring them up, and nobody said anything in, Suzanne
Oh, I
called
thought
this
I
morning.
thought I responded. In any case, I did not have a chance to review the documents, you know, the lighting and everything, so I can't really.
So I brought them down this morning when she called, because I was gonna bring them down last week, but,
What documents are these we're referring to?
oh, the
All
copies,
the plans and.
the same thing that's on the,
Oh,
Yeah,
just
right,
copies.
on there,
right,
just
right,
copies
right.
of the hard copies. Nothing,
No
Nothing.
other additional information.
no. You wanna take it over there? I just highlighted the lights and stuff like that. If you drive by it,
So
at
are
night-
they existing, so those around the perimeter I take as existing lights?
Correct,
Is, the ones on the building, so is everything orange existing?
yes.
Okay. So you're not proposing
No, no flood.
any new lighting?
No
other than
flood
like-
lightings, because
Right,
it's
other than
been all
like
set up.
doorways or whatever you need?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, we'll do the doorways, there's a side man door over here, and there's the entranceway here. We'll do whatever we have to do for the,
It's pretty simple.
for the,
It's a 1 foot candle and exit path. It's not very much.
You okay with that?
they got flood lighting.
But,
I mean, he's not doing it, he's just adding.
Yeah, I mean, he's not gonna put it,
lights
you're
at
gonna
the
put it,
door, so it's not
they already
gonna,
have the display
We're not
lighting, right?
gonna
so-
be blinding
Yeah,
bats.
that's
We're not
what
gonna
it
be
is.
blinding bats any more than they're already blinded by,
Right.
You drive by it, points down into the lot. These are up on utility poles back here, pointing down. These are on, just standard stanchions. There were actually lights on the utility poles before, but I can't tell whether they're not on all the time, so.
So
right
just,
off the lights it is the-
so just for clarity, so what is new on this plan in terms of stormwater management? Anything? Nothing, okay.
And
So-
it was in the O&M plan, I think, that you submitted, that
I
there was a
said-
reference to catch basins.
Yeah,
and
'cause I had copied it,
The
and-
plan did not show any.
And there
and
are
I
none.
didn't think there were any, so that
There
was
are
the
none.
clarification that was
And you've
needed.
changed the plan to eliminate, the O&M plan to change, to
Yes.
eliminate the
To-
reference to.
Yeah, that there are none.
And then everything else, so is there a reason we can't vote on this tonight? Put this one to bed, or?
And if the board's comfortable with it,
I mean, it seems, well, I'm comfortable with it,
No
yes.
signage, no new signage, or is that gonna be separate, or?
Yeah, we talked
If
about this.
we talked about it last time, if he's gonna do something, he'll
gonna be
come
separate.
back.
Come back, if it would only come back if it was a new site or if it was.
Yeah, and he said, like, he-
I just have a question about the lights, which you may or may not be able to answer, Bruce. I believe that within the regulations, it says lights are supposed to be turned off at 11 o'clock at night and not shine all through the evening hours.
I
And
cannot
that's
tell you.
broadly, and yet all across town, the lights are left on all night long for
I
businesses.
can't tell you that. I'm not up at that hour.
Yeah. And I don't recall that as.
I think
that
I've seen you
happens
out.
in
I've seen you at
places. I do
Bertucci's
drive by
that
late
late.
at
Yeah.
night, But I don't
Not at
recall
11
if
o'clock
they're
anymore.
lights
Especially on
on.
karaoke night.
Well, we do have that regulation in place, and I suppose we
There
have
may be
mechanisms
something
to
we can
enforce that
we
if
can,
also, right?
reinforce too in the decision, just remind people that the lights.
By all means,
Sure.
I honestly don't know when they shut them down or not.
These lights are fairly new, right? The lights that are here.
It's the
These
last
have
one
been
out.
for a while.
Well,
Get the
when you
lights.
say fairly new, probably within the last 10 years. But I can't go beyond, I don't know exactly when. He says he rents these from National Grid. These, along the front here, he put in when they put the
Yeah,
light. And it does light up the place.
yeah. It's interesting that,
So you just highlighted the existing lighting, it's not new lighting.
Nothing's proposed,
lights like that.
other than some
I
lights,
mean, in the past.
just for the entranceway.
Well, 10 years, I
Yeah.
mean,
We're not
we should have
planning
seen
to.
it, right?
It's a well-lit section, and again, we're
We can have
putting
that conversation.
the addition right where the pavement is and everything else, and we're removing his little
So,
sales office.
enforcement in terms of if somebody, you have a bylaw,
Right, yeah.
there's lots of things that get done that you don't know about.
So is
But
everything,
there's a bylaw, if you had to.
are you
enforce
just are they just patching
it. If you
in,
wanna, you wanna
doing a
Take
top
that,
coat,
tell you
is
it's
the
good.
paving or is the
That
paving going to be completely new?
sense of the barrier.
Oh, no, I think they're just gonna do what they have to around here. This is all,
Everything else is gonna.
this has all
remain.
been fairly new. This was within 5 years that they did the septic system. When they did that, they ripped up all this and repaved it over here, so I don't think they're gonna do that. They'll do what they have to around here when they put this in. And they'll be meeting the existing grade. There's no change in elevation, there's no.
So what is the flavor of the board?
Well, Stephanie, we don't normally approve things without you having first had a chance to review. Do you have any specific concerns or you don't know since you haven't had a chance to like review what's been
Yeah,
submitted?
I haven't, I mean, again, the comments that if the board is satisfied with the 28 feet in the height of the building, I had questioned, but I think this was answered, even though I wasn't at the meeting. I checked in with Suzanne, whether it was a 2-story or 1.5 story, but I think it's just the up.
Yeah, it's
not
just-
an
yeah, it's
upstairs.
That, and I looked
And
up,
then I'd just be interested in the landscaping. Do you have that shown on the plan?
I show where it's gonna go as far as that goes, and it's gonna be low shrubs. Low-growing shrubs.
So again, in the decision, we can add that, again, per the rules and regulations, it needs to be native species.
Should we be specifying a quantity?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you-
again, there's nothing there, so it would be
Mhm.
really nice to
So you
enhance the
have,
site.
you have 108 feet minus about 8,
I
12
don't have my phone with
feet,
me to
so,
tell you, like, how much,
oh no, not
like
108,
4
I'm
foot
sorry.
on
that's
center
what we're
or-
doing. So,
It's 98 minus, oh, there you go.
when you say low, like low shrubbery,
Yes, because
48
Yeah,
plus,
so, oh, it's a 60, I thought it was a 50.
yeah, plus maybe
Well, it's 60 to the end.
and we're on
60,
the,
call it
I know
Or
they're
like 80
always
70 linear
concerned
feet
with
of shrubs.
when you look at
so
this, we want it low, because
Whenever
we
you
don't
like.
want it to go up through the
every
window.
4
or-
feet.
But you're
6
talking
feet.
about just in front of the building, not
Yeah.
Here
So-
and over
and
here.
along the front of the site?
No. not along the front of the site, because
See,
that'll
that's
block
really-
that'll block the cars.
Well, you know, maybe we should just give Stephanie time to comment
And I
on a few
appreciate
things that we
that.
usually have on the plan,
Could be
and we can
some-
just move this to the next meeting. Because typically, even if she receives it, say, 5 days in advance, that at least gives her time to give you a few ideas about what we typically require on a plan, so you can sort of at least try to knock a few of those off and put a few things on there. But I mean, in this case, they're just.
So let's step back here for a
Yeah,
second,
sure.
because first of all, I understand we want things to go through the planner, but we're talking, okay, drainage-wise, that's why I first asked Stephanie, because we're talking about the first plan referred to a catch basin, which doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
So, and then the other item's height, it doesn't really matter. We don't get to allow buildings, we just asked about that out of curiosity. It means nothing whether this is a 1-, 2-, or 3-story building. It has to be, I'm assuming the staff in this building is going to enforce the zoning. We asked that out of curiosity, and we've seen the plans, and we said it last time, the building looks like it's 25 to 30 feet high. But again, this is site plan review, we don't really have anything to do with that. The lighting is existing. So if I'm hearing now, and I haven't heard this, we've had 2 previous meetings, I'm hearing now if we're gonna require landscaping on the street area, then first of all, I would like to have heard that sooner, because that's important. That now changes, this is an existing business. We see right on the plan, they have their display right on top of the street. So now the fact they wanna, I thought we were all about economic development, so they're taking down a little shanty shack and putting up, they're improving their building. So are we saying that we're gonna require them to take the rest of this site and now extensively landscape it? And if we are, that's fine. I think we should have said it sooner, and I think we should be more open about it. So we can do 1 or 2 things. If we're gonna require extensive landscaping, then that's fine. Let's communicate that to the applicant, and let's continue. Or, if, I don't think that this plan, if we were okay where we were last time, I don't think this plan, or the update, the fact that it didn't come in, or nobody saw it till today, if it was here, there's nothing major from what we talked last time that I think that has to hold this up, okay? Again, because it was the wording of the catchphrase. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Stephanie, if I'm on the drainage. I certainly don't, but, so to me, this really comes down to the landscaping. So on the building, right, there's just a little green thing. Next time, just give us some circles and say, because, and so we could do 1 or 2 things. We could say, you know what, okay, we want, Wayne said, 1 every 4 feet. We'd like to see a plant, native species, every 4 feet. Spec it out, that's fine.
I was talking at the building.
That's what I'm right. That's what I'm talking about. Talking around the building. So we can do that 1 or 2 ways. We can say, like we just did on the project before us. Okay, come back with a plan, give it to Stefan, it'll be fine. Or come back 1 more time with that on there. But the bigger question is, now I see we're talking about out on top of the street. So we have to be careful when we start saying this stuff. So are we saying that we want this existing display layout? And I don't know, I mean, it's site plan review, but we just need to be careful. Are we saying we want them to change their existing layout, and we've been driving by that place for 30 years and there's always been cars right on top of the street, and now has there been an outcry that I missed that, suddenly we need 4 feet of 4 feet high landscaping there, it's a car dealer, so we just need to be careful with what we want to do. So I get it, landscaping's nice, but we also need to think of what the purpose of this business is. And again, if this was a brand new business, it'd be a little different, but it's an existing. So with that said, I'll open that up all to you guys. I just want you to understand, I don't know if I'm comfortable with saying, I want you to landscape along the whole street. Because do we have the power to do it? I guess we do if we want, but is that what we want to do?
I actually agree with you. Sometimes over the course of meetings,
Scary, isn't it?
Sometimes over the course of meetings, someone will bring up an idea, maybe not in the first meeting, maybe later on after more thought goes through the process, and sometimes that idea can be good and require, and at least be worthy of some contemplation before before just saying, oh well, we didn't think of that 2 weeks ago, so that point's moot. I mean, that's not really how we do
Right,
it.
but this is a pretty substantial point
Right, yeah.
to bring up at the 11th
And,
hour.
Well, if I may, I mean, in my report, and unfortunately I wasn't here for this particular project at the last meeting, I state that landscaping that provides visual appeal and softens the harshness of the expansive impervious surface. Understanding that the site is developed, already, and that it is a car dealership, and understanding that, part of the way you attract people is visibility of the vehicles. What I would have said if I'd been in the meeting, I would have extrapolated a little bit. Yes, I think landscaping around the building is, it adds something, but that, and I'm not telling the board you need to go in this direction, that it might be nice to have some vegetation that breaks up that harsh view of just paved area. Virtually the whole site is paved.
Yeah, right, and really, I mean, unfortunately with, car dealerships and a lot of other businesses also,
I've
I mean,
seen a lot of car
like maximizing
dealerships.
this, the usable
Right,
space is sort
right.
of the thing that's gonna make them the most viable business and most likely in reality and in their mind. But then on some other projects that we might work on, whereas someone's starting a new business and they go through quite a more extensive landscape review process.
Yeah, and I think if it were a new car dealership, you could even ask for landscaping that doesn't intrude. I think, as an example, if you've seen McGovern, it was Bernardi started off at West Chestnut Street and Manley Street, I think, is the side
Yeah, I
street
go there
over in
sometimes.
Brockton, that they really did a nice job adding some visual appeal with landscaping there. So that was the purpose of the
Right,
comment.
but so, and I appreciate that, but I think in this case, and what I would have said, and I certainly appreciate staff support, but I also value the independence of the board. We're the volunteers, we're the ones, it's our planning board makes the final decision. So the board members, what we have to ask ourselves, I look at this and say, okay, so here's a building. How many times as a resident of this town, and I've driven by this thousands of times, have I ever thought, geez, they should have some landscaping out there? And it hasn't, to me, it's just,
I have.
it's, no, that's fine, I'm just talking about me, I'm like, oh, there's just cars on top of the street. So now they're doing an addition, and the question is, do we have, maybe we have the power to make them do this, maybe not. But then I look at the plan, and it's 42 feet between the street and the building. So, well, parking spot, those cars parked, and there's a little bit of curb, and they're not right on top of the property line, so that, I don't know, what's that, 22 feet, 24 feet, whatever, say 22 feet. So that leaves us, 18 feet, 20 feet between the back of those cars and the building, just enough for a pass, for two cars going by. I think our bylaw width is 24 or 22 feet. And that's without taking, say, 4 feet for landscaping at the building. So to Stephanie's point, landscaping is nice and it softens, but it also can happen at the building. I'm not comfortable forcing, I think this would be a big change of display space. I think it would cut down their display space. And I think that's an overreach on our part, because they're in trying to improve their property. So, if there had been residents here, if we had a history of people saying, there's too many cars there, or we need a green space. But I've never heard that. And Wayne's point is obviously, we're different. But I would, if someone were to say, I think we should require a 4-foot landscaping strip. First of all, it's not gonna be big enough. Look at the landscaping across the street, it's 10 feet and it's all dead. We know what happens with salt and all that. There's not enough, if this isn't a new space, if this was a new site plan, it'd be totally different. Remember up at the Ford dealership, we had rain guards on, we don't have the room for that here, so.
I agree with you, on
Yeah.
a new site, it would be completely different.
Right.
You'd do the maximum.
And so when I just look at the existing layout of this, I don't think, I just don't agree with putting landscape out front, because I don't think there's enough room for it. And I think we could potentially be hindering their business, and we don't wanna do that. And someone might say, oh, there's too many cars, they don't like it, but it's been there a long time, and, so anyways, that's my thought.
Okay, so I concur that it's probably overreach, or I feel that it's overreach for us to add landscaping to an existing lot but I think that also, I will say, it appears to me that, this car dealership's not only occupying the parking spaces they have, but they've paved the strip between Turnpike Street and their property line, and they're parking cars there. I'm looking at it right now on Google Earth. I can tell you right now, I can see that
The
they're,
cars that are out front of the people that stop and look.
well, no, this, I mean, clearly they've even got a parking spot here that's not true. I mean, yeah, they're using it as visitor parking or whatever, but they're using it. They've paved it, it's the same paving right along. It's pretty clear that that's what they're doing. And in addition to that, you know, there's a sidewalk that ends, you know, a couple, 75 feet up the road. And it's unfortunate that we as a board, and I agree, that we are not endowed with the ability to make a change like this, but maybe we should give some consideration to the fact that when something like this comes in front of us, for the betterment of Easton, you know, if we could put forward that, you know, a sidewalk should be added and that, you know, vehicle parking along that busy street. I remember not, you know, 34 years ago, a person was killed right along there, a teacher, but nevertheless, I think it's a lost opportunity, and, you know, without some kind of direction from the town, I don't know that we can
Well,
take
it's
advantage
a
of it.
highway. First of all, it has to be, it's
But it's
mass,
not-
it's
but
mass
clearly
DOT, it's not the town. We can't just suddenly start putting
we could-
sidewalks on state routes.
No, but we could, as we, you know, insisted on the previous application tonight, a change in the curb cut, we could send the applicant to the state to get this resolved, and we don't. And I'm not saying that we should in this case, because I don't think we have the directive to do
Well, I
that.
don't think this is germane to the other situation. The other situation had to do with access to another property. You're trying to, what you two are
Well-
talking about is improvements to the overall site. Okay, but do we have the right to do that? And certainly, to me, this would be you know, if there's an issue, if they've overpaved, if there's an issue of them using land that's not yours, well, we have lots of employees in this building that have zoning enforcement after their name, and they can get out there and work on it. That's not our purview. Here, we're looking at a site plan. So the question is.
So how do
there-
we as a town get a sidewalk over there?
You, your Department of DPW, right, and your planning department works with the DOT.
Anytime there's a new an application, because there's an alteration though, doesn't that give us some ability to possibly make some improvements, even if they're not drastic?
Yes, but, and I would say, first of all, I mean, first of all, improvements being done because of what they're doing to the building, right? And, okay, we're adding landscaping along the building, but what did you say? You said drastic or
I said-
detrimental? What
No, I said,
at the
isn't
end?
there an opportunity?
No, but unless it's not,
No, even if they're not drastic.
right,
Like you
but,
mentioned extensive landscaping, I don't know, if you're insisting on extensive landscaping, I think you're talking about possibly some enhancement of greenery closer to street level, which
Right.
might be minimal.
Right.
well, but you need a certain amount. You can't put a 2-foot grass strip out there and nothing's gonna grow. So
I
you
know.
need, I think if we had a landscape architect here, or if we talked to someone with soils, you probably need at least 8 to 10 feet of depth, given all the chemicals that go on the road and the microclimate there that exists because it is surrounded by pavement. So let's just say we're gonna do that. So we needed 6 to 8 feet of pavement, or 8 to 10 feet of pavement. You're now not gonna be able to display those cars there, because you're not gonna have enough, you're not gonna have enough
I
of a
certainly-
driveway between the display
So if I
cars
could, just so.
and the
that
building, which is an existing condition.
the-
And
the
I don't
board-
think, excuse me for a second, and I don't think we have the right, because they wanna add on to a building, to change their existing conditions. Go ahead, sorry, but I wanted to get that point out.
I wasn't recommending that a full landscape strip be installed along in front of the building. I didn't know if there was an opportunity, and the board certainly can ask. They can't make the applicant do something that isn't a safety issue or something that's going to impact health. But they could ask, and maybe there was an opportunity to, I don't know, just make some areas that would provide some relief. Again, they're proposing to put some plantings along the building, maybe that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, these are good thoughts to keep in mind as we consider other applications, but I'll just make a motion to approve the plan for the Turning Pike Street property as most recently presented.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? You got it. All right, it's 3-2. There you go.
You wanna add the thing about the shrubs? I don't care about that. You're gonna put so many shrubs,
That's not.
Little late
it's
now,
not
it
my
wasn't in the
It's not
motion.
my motion, so.
okay, you wanna keep
But
it?
you heard what Stephanie was looking for, so I don't think.
I gave her a copy, but this.
I think you're gonna do a great job on that, either
There's-
one way or
Bruce.
the other.
There's certainly nothing that stops you from taking that plan, and you heard a board member say it's on, you're recommending a planting location and species. The more information the town hall can get them, the more they would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, continued public hearing, Lincoln Estates 2. Anybody here for that? Lincoln Estates 2? Oh, so here, this is,
We bored the internet so much.
yeah, but no,
No, I know.
it'll,
I'd have to
Mike
refresh,
keeps
right,
doing
yeah.
it too. Here, there's a, here, I'm gonna pass this down to you guys. This was on my seat. Go ahead. All right, I don't need revised. Okay, so before you guys start, I'm reading Stephanie's report. And in reference to your project, it says revised documents, including a response to the peer review of stormwater and revised plans, were submitted late Friday afternoon. Excuse me. Beta has not reviewed the response to their comments. Due to the amount of information both shown on the plans and provided, I was not able to adequately review the documents prior to the meeting. So, just, so with that in mind, given everything involved in this project, I don't think we'll be able to vote on it. Actually, we can't, we have to wait to hear back from Beta. We need to hear our planner's report. So if you want to give an abbreviated little update of, I guess, what you've done, that's fine. But I just wanted to start out with that, and who's ever gonna present, just please grab the microphone.
Can I make a statement first?
Grab the microphone and identify yourself.
Bill Adams, I'm the owner of the property. And the comments that were made by the reviewer, we've addressed. And of the 12 comments that were there, 9 of them were adding things to the plan, which I'd like to point out each thing. I have the engineer point out. I don't think there's significant things outstanding in that list of items that we can't explain, that everybody would understand tonight, that
Yep,
would require.
that's fine, but we've already initiated a peer review with Beta Engineering, so
Right.
we need to get their response to your revisions, so we can't act without that.
Right, except that my only thing is, I spent $3,500 for the person to review the original comments. The amount of review that he had to do was minor. We did a report that was way, way, way overkill, it was 92 pages. A lot of the things are charts and graphs that do not require review of each line item and every item that's there. That 3,500 is used now, and they're looking for 1,200 more to now review the 9 or 12 questions that 9 of them were add-ons to the plan, like show the test pits. So we show the test pits. I don't believe that an engineer has to review the test pits to make sure that the test pits are now added to the plan. If those test pits they came from the Board of Health, and they're been added to the plan. I mean, I don't wanna just keep wasting money on something that wasn't required to begin with, that I've agreed to do, that's costing thousands of dollars. It's becoming ridiculous. And I'm trying to do everything I can do to accommodate the board, but I don't
you know, how much do I spend? And if I've gotta now do another $1,200, it costs more to review the work than it costs my engineer to design it. It's like kind of outrageous. And, you know, I agree to do it because I'm trying to accommodate the board. It's something that's not required by the state, it's not required by the town bylaw. I agreed to do it for the neighbors. And the neighbors are all dumping their water on my property.
Okay, all right, I
And
get your
I
point.
wanna rehash that a little
I've heard
bit.
that 3 times, we don't need to go down that road,
Right.
thank you. Steph, do you wanna respond to peer review at all? You don't have to, but if you have anything you wanna say to that.
Because this came in late, it was just sent over to Beta, and we just got the quote. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I don't know if Andrea had a chance to look at that amount in detail. What I do know is that there were 3 plan sheets submitted, new plan sheets. There's a lot of information on them. There was a lot of information that was submitted. I did try, when Walter came in the office today, I didn't think I'd have a chance at all to look at it. I did get a chance to start to look at it, and there's just so much information. I really didn't have a chance to compare what had been submitted before, what was new, and look at it. So from my standpoint, I'm just not comfortable with having not reviewed it. And again, I haven't had a chance to even look at the response to Beta's comments.
Okay.
No, now I'm gonna speak. Now the board's gonna speak. You had your say, we hear you loud and clear, and I understand. And you're certainly not the first person to have issue with the cost of peer review. I want everybody to understand, everybody in this room and everybody at home and everybody on this board. Many years ago, the town of Easton, and like most towns, got rid of its town engineer for liability issues. We have a planning staff, extensive planning staff, and we have a board. But usually when the opinion either of this board and or the town planner, certain projects may require to go out to peer review. So sometimes some are simple, some aren't. And in the past, we've had concerns with different iterations of this board. We've seen projects where exactly what Mr. Adams just said, and peer review can get a little carried away in the applicant's opinion. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but you're certainly not the first person to say, geez, peer review engineering costs more than the engineering. But you have to understand the position, the spot that we're in. We work with our staff, we work with the experts that are hired by the town. So I hear what you're saying, and probably not gonna, we're not gonna be able to help you cost-wise. We don't have a horse in the race, as they say. But going at one point prior to Stephanie, under the previous town planner, we were hearing complaints like this more and more. We said, maybe we need to try to get a tighter scope of work or something. Or any consultant sometimes bills can run on. I'm not saying that happened in this case, right. But anyway, so you have to understand the position that we're in. We all agreed, in every basically, right, 95% of the projects we have peer review, and we go through that process. So then, and if you look at our bylaw, it also says stuff's supposed to be in 14 days ahead of time, and we try to work with that. And that 14 days never gets hit. We try to get 7, so but so the problem is, so it's like we don't, we have lives too. So I'm not refreshing my computer every 2 minutes to see if people have uploaded yet to the town's website. And Stephanie is a very busy person. She has things to do. So when stuff comes in towards the end of the week, town hall closes at noon on Friday. So so if it does us no good to get something when I walk in here or I get it Monday morning. I had to make money today. I actually had to go out and work, broken arm and all. And so and I want my board members to be well informed and to be able to make good decisions. So, I hear what you're saying money-wise, but hear what I'm saying schedule-wise. To me, I would rather, I looked at it like, I looked at this like, stuff just came in. Why are we even meeting on this tonight? So going forward, everybody in Easton that wants to come to this board, get your stuff in ahead of time so we can adequately. The bylaw says 14 days. We try to work with you 7. 1 day is unacceptable. So let's try to have a nice professional meeting on this. We hear what you're saying, but we're not getting paid on peer review. We're not going to pay a penny. So, I would recommend that you or your agents, get together with Stephanie, maybe, have talk to, where it's at. I don't know if there has to be another round, but hopefully this, say, hey, somebody just said, here, I gotta keep the cost down, and can we wrap up, you know, maybe a conversation, a little conference call can help, eliminate ambiguity, you eliminate tension, and you get to the, we're all trying to work together here, so let's, we'll try to work that out so that, okay, whatever these comments are, close, if there's one or two issues left, we'll figure it out on the phone. That way, the guy's not billing out at whatever, $300 an hour or whatever it is, so. Anyway, so with that said, I'd like to move on now to the content of,
Could I say one more thing?
yeah, just don't repeat anything.
No,
Okay.
the changes that we did make, Walter can show them on the plan.
Sure.
And the board can see themselves if those items were actually added and changed. It's not like they were, not formulas and
Sure,
calculations and all
but
that.
keep in mind, I know how to read plans, I've been doing it for 40 years, but I want to, I think I can speak for most of these men and women, I want to be able to, in my own space, wherever that is, review the plans, contemplate them, think about them. I don't want to see them here for the first time. And I sure as heck don't want to see them here for the first time and then have my planner say she hasn't even had a chance to look at them, and we're still waiting to hear back from peer review. That's just not good process for any of us, because I'm sure he's not sitting here for free. So see, I'm trying to save you money, So now, if we could just come back in one meeting, boom. So if you want to zip through the stuff, but we don't need to get deep in the weeds because, go through the list quick. That's fine. Bang through it. If Stephanie wants to talk about, I don't even think you've had a chance to review it, right? So I don't know what. You're waiting to hear back from Beta, right? That's the status.
Waiting to hear back from them, and again, I didn't have time to go through in depth and look at the plans.
But if you want to give us the abridged version, absolutely.
I will do my best, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Walter Hermano, PE for the record.
Oh yeah, just grab. Since you'll be talking for a while, it'll be easier, if you don't mind.
Walter Hermano, PE for the record. Everything you said, Mr. Chairman, I wholeheartedly agree with. This is a list of the
I think is this
four pages of comments.
we have the 22nd? Yeah, we have it.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Of the 92
Yeah.
that we submitted, this 4 right here is basically all one needs to look at. In the spirit of making the comments and changes necessary valid, and the ones that are actually required.
Walter, could I have a copy of that?
Oh, I thought it came from you.
Does everyone have a copy? Okay. This much of the submittal, all right, I bothered to actually take a look at an expanded drainage area for this project. That was not required. It is absolutely an issue brought up by the peer reviewer. And it all is in regards to a culvert on the project. And I just want the board to know and save yourself some time and money, because all those are above are very important. The culvert was approved prior to this submittal being made before the board. There's been great discussion made about the culvert. I've taken the drainage area for the project. I've expanded it out at least 5 times, greater than the area of the subject site. Just hypothetically, to understand if that culvert's going to function during the worst possible storm event. I just did this to appease the reviewer. That request, that comment to look beyond the property line to see if the culvert was going to fully function or not, that was not just. This culvert's been approved by the town. So, in the spirit of the questions being valid and appropriate for the project, can we get a credit for my client for questions like that? Because we're providing all this additional information, which they're now going to ask for more money to look at. It's not even valid in the first place. So I'm just trying to be honest here. I'm showing everything on the project that's been requested, we've presented, and we've added to the plan. So the comments that we went through, 1 through 12, as my client so illustrated very articulately, we've added them to the plan. Provide centerline stationing on plans to be able to correlate profile with plan. We added that to sheets 4 and 5. Plan indicates 2 weirs, and he needed a detail for each one of those weirs. That's what we provided. We put them on sheet 6. Provide typical roof runoff infiltration system with support and calculations. That one, I debated it. It's roof runoff infiltration, which is never taken very seriously. But we have a detail on the plan that shows it carrying through the 100-year storm event. They're not supposed to handle that much, but we've included it. Revised plan profile grades to match. Roadway profile indicates proposed centerline road grade is above elevation 209. Okay, that was a little minor oversight. The plan can be a little confusing, but we've taken care of that. That's on sheets 4 to 6. Comment number 5. Recommend including a 12-inch stone diaphragm on road edges to provide additional pre-treatment of runoff. Well, we discussed that at the last meeting.
Oh, I made the print.
You made, I had to quote you,
I know
sir.
it was Chris Anderson that
I
said
had to
that.
quote you, sir, but seriously, no, they don't last very long, and
Right.
they provide minimal effectiveness.
I concur with the chairman.
Concur with the
A
chairman.
big sign that just says it.
Moving on to number 6, include a stone construction entrance. Good comment. We've added that to the plan. That makes a lot of sense. Identify potential stockpile areas on plan. Okay, yeah, we've done that. We've added several potential stockpile areas on the plan for construction purposes. To verify the project will not cause standing water on or adjacent to abutting properties, include the following. I went into a little bit of elaborate 2 paragraphs here to explain how the applicant does receive stormwater from those abutting properties. We don't want to hear that again. Also, for a majority of the stormwater that passes through the BMPs, I point out that it's being treated to the maximum extent practical. We do not have an increase in runoff from this project to any downgradient properties. Moving on to number 8. Provide sections that propose culverts. This one I disagreed with. I thought that was a slight bit of overkill. So what we did is we added some elevations. I asked Frank Ryblin, the surveyor for the project, to include some spot grades at the back of the people's yards before our roadway. I've added them, and it will clearly demonstrate, if you look at the grading, it goes from their property through the culverts to the wetlands. There'll be no backup of any stormwater. Provide soil test pit data, that's number 9. We've indicated that on the plans. And that's for both lots, and I'm sure there's going to be maybe some additional testing out there for one lot in particular with the Board of Health. That would be the one to the left. The one to the right had more test pits than the one to the left, but we've included all the boring logs that we know of, all the test pit logs that are on the plan. Number 10, recommend developing a profile of anticipated flow path through the culvert to show that the basins and swales will empty between rainfall events. Okay. As I've spelled out here in my reply, wet basins are supposed to be designed at or below the water table. They're supposed to be that close to the water table for a reason. They're called a wet basin. All right? These won't necessarily empty between all rainfall events. The wet basin is designed at the high water table, which during the wet season, the water table is going to be up. During the dry season, it's going to be down. So the wet swale is going to act in step with the wetlands. During the wet season, it might be a little bit wet. During the dry season, probably going to be dry. All right, so I can't show that it's going to empty between rainfall events because that's not what's required under the stormwater management guidelines. Number 11, revise drainage analysis area to include all upgrading areas. All upgrading areas providing runoff to the existing culvert to accurately model the culvert. As I opened up, the culvert's already been approved by the town. That's excessive. Anyhow, I explained why I don't think that's required, and I wrote, nonetheless, I hypothetically expanded the study area to an area greater than 5 times what the site includes. And I've concluded through the modeling, some interpolation, because we do not have a survey of the 15 to 20 acres of additional area. We don't have a survey of that, nor is it required. But I have, through looking at the neighborhood, worked in the model, and it demonstrated in that additional 92-page submittal that we just made recently, most of that is in regards to the culvert. And it shows that it works all the way through a 100-year storm event, blowing the site up 5 times greater than what it is. So I think we've killed the culvert issue, and I hope it's not brought up again.
So, how many there's one culvert, right? The culvert you keep referring to is the one that has to be raised,
There's
right?
two types of culverts on the project.
Well,
I mean lowered, but that's the one you're talking about,
There's a box
right?
culvert that I'm talking
So,
about.
just, I hear what you're saying, but keep in mind that the culvert, right, it was approved, if I'm not mistaken, it was approved previously, but it wasn't installed correctly.
That's correct.
So I don't think it's a reach for someone who comes in new to this, i.e. peer review, to ask these questions about it, because the thought is, well, wait a minute, all right, geez, they didn't do it right the first time, now we're gonna let them do more. So I get what you're saying, hey, this was all approved, but it wasn't installed as improved, and that's important, because it has to do with drainage. It's not like you put a fire hydrant 5 feet in the wrong place, or you put in 2 trees instead of 8. You did install a culvert in a very wet area correctly. So, do it right, and maybe you won't have such a long peer review, with all due respect,
Yeah.
so.
No,
And at the time, it was a one lot. It was one lot, it wasn't a 2-lot subdivision.
right, that one lot includes these two that you're looking at tonight. It's never changed shape or size.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out too, that the plans recognize the fact that the culvert was put in too high, and we proposed to put it in at the original design elevation. And when Mr. Hermano references that it was approved previously, the culvert was approved by both the Conservation Commission and DEP. DEP has reviewed it and approved it at the elevation that we are proposing to drop it down to, not the elevation.
Right, no, I understand that, you guys are gonna correct it, but my point is, maybe that's one of the reasons that, and I'm not trying to, we all make mistakes, but maybe that's one of the reasons why it keeps coming up, because it wasn't put in right, so it's just,
Well,
but anyways.
I did study it, and it was explained
Sure.
on my initial submittal.
So,
But what I'm pointing out is, I've now studied it for the area the reviewer asked for, well beyond the project site.
sure, no, I understand that, and I appreciate that. So, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, it sounds like we're getting close anyways. I mean, there's obviously, the, not Woodward, Beta, it's Beta, right? This one Beta has to review. And, when the report comes back, if there's things, then I would ask Stephanie and to get in touch with you guys or if you have to get together with Beta, or maybe you do it ahead of time, whatever, however you guys work it during the 9 to 5 in this building. But, if you need to get on the phone, like I said before, work out so that, 'cause I get what you're saying. I mean, it's right, it's 2 lots, you don't want to beat a dead horse, but these are important issues. So, sometimes during peer review, because, you have all these outsiders, and sometimes, you need to kick the mule in the butt a little bit to move things, bureaucratic process can get stuck in the mud sometimes. So, I'm sure with a room full of intelligent folks like yourself, you can all get together and like-minded folks and get everything figured out, so that the next time you come before us, we should have everything set, that we could, hopefully wrap it up and vote on something,
Right.
or entertain motions.
Right, and we definitely have offered that, to have the engineers communicate directly.
Yeah, and I do understand everyone's time is very valuable and precious, likewise. I would have gotten this in earlier if I wasn't going down a rabbit hole to expand and look at items that were well beyond what was initially discussed or required. Just so we're clear, I understand, and I don't want to submit something the day of or a day before. I try to get it in earlier, but there was a lot more work involved in the plan. The last comment, include long-term operations and maintenance plan. Not required, but that's been included on the plan.
Okay. Yeah, my only point was just, going forward, we've worked with you a lot, Walter, and, you do a great job, and just,
Thank you, I appreciate that.
But in fairness to this board, I know I can only speak for myself, but I hate to get something for the first time here, just because then I'm just listening. I'd rather have more of an interaction, when you talk about a certain thing. Of course, we've been down this road a little bit on this one, so and it's not like it's a giant project. So, anyways, but
Yep.
we've
One more thing, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned about is the additional monies to review comments that I've submitted on items that I've, on the record now stated, were not required or I feel are excessive. So where do we draw the line? I would like to know and have some reassurance that someone's watching the purse on this one, because I think charging for information that is not required or is excessive is more than overkill. There's something wrong with it. And as I pointed out on several of these comments, and I was being sarcastic to begin with, but I've got at least 3 of them where my client should be due a credit for having me spend time to answer them. So I really hope the board considers the extra charges that the review engineer has requested to hopefully close this out.
You're not really looking for us to give you credit, right? Because, you know, we have no say in that. I mean, we have.
Pro
unless
bono,
should we all,
pro bono by the review engineer, that'd be appreciated.
I really understand what you're saying, and I'm not trying to take a lighthearted approach, but we have nothing we can do about it. There's a system in place, so that's, if I was in if I was in a similar situation, I would talk to the planner, and I'd say, hey, look at these items, we don't need these for this reason. Really need this engineer to zero out on this. We need to wrap this thing up. Whatever, some kind of conversation. You're more familiar, obviously, with the exact details. We don't, as a board, we don't have, going forward, we can, maybe we need to have another discussion like we've had in the past about, maybe it makes sense. We talked about maybe having a little handbook of what are items that might be perceived in part of a scope as a peer review, because that may be a valuable tool. We farm out RFPs to peer review every 4 or 5 years, and maybe every so often in peer review. And I'm not saying it happened in this case, but there's been times where people, they just get used to it. They can just build, hey, it's peer review. No one's. So I understand that, but
Mr. Chair, I really need to speak up on that. One, I am, and I said this earlier, I haven't had a chance to look at the second cost estimate, and I'm happy to talk with Andrea and talk with Mr. Paradis and figure out exactly what we need to close this out and what that level of review needs to be. And maybe it's not $1,200. I know our peer reviewers do not just submit quotes where it's not necessary. And they're not looking just to earn money. I think we all want to get to closure, and we all like it when a project is well-developed and answers the questions as early in the process as possible. This particular site, and I think this may be where some of your concerns, and you're saying it's not really relevant, the purpose of having peer review for this, primarily from my perspective for this board, was to ensure that there was no increase in off-site flow and there was no adverse impact of additional water on the abutting properties. Now, if that review went beyond that, then we will address that.
That was answered the first time around.
So that's.
And that's one of your questions, because I believe you had 3, Stephanie, right? No off-site, increase in flow. There was 2 more. I forget the other 2. If you could, please help me out.
The test pits.
The test pits, thank you, test pits. And then the last one is an issue regarding location of wetlands flags.
And that's not my issue, that's the conservation agents.
Okay, so conservation, but this is the planning board, correct?
That's right.
Okay, and as I've explained, I just want the board to completely understand, and feel free to ask me any questions if you don't. This wetlands line remains accepted under a valid permit. And I've been pressed to, repeatedly, 2 or 3 times, there's been a request for additional flags to be put out there so they can be reviewed and approved. That's not gonna happen at this level, at this process of the submittal, the development of the property, because we're gonna go to conservation next. That's what's required. And we're gonna present before conservation and ask them if they still understand their records as we have interpreted them. So I don't want that to come up as another issue.
That's not an issue for this board.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to wrap up any loose ends, which at this moment, I'd like to ask anyone on the board, if you have any questions that I could address, comment, think about.
I want to say one thing. Planning boards aren't perfect. Planners aren't perfect. Applicants aren't perfect. Peer reviewers aren't perfect. Peer reviewers are in the business of reviewing to make money. You're doing what you're doing to make money. She's here to make money. We're here volunteering. I ask the town staff, I ask the applicants, and I ask the peer review, the almighty peer review, to work out problems ahead of time, so when it comes to this board, you know, complaining about bills may be valid, nothing to do with us, okay? I want packages in front of us that we can, ahead of time, that we can review, and I say that to everybody here. So if we're not ready for now on, then this meeting shouldn't have even happened tonight. We should have had time to review it. I understand your frustration, but I've already heard it the last couple of meetings. So if Beta's getting a little carried away in your opinion, then talk with Stephanie, you know, talk with Beta, figure it out. We're not, our tool for that, our mechanism for that is the town planner. What I want coming before me are projects that have been reviewed by whoever has to review them. And yeah, maybe there's one or two things missing, but, so anyways, so that's, you know, that's that. And I'm not implying that there's any issue with Beta on this, but I'm also not implying that your concerns aren't valid. Because right, just at some degree, this is just a 2-lot subdivision that is downhill of existing lots. And the drainage going off, we addressed that in the very first meeting. So, you know, anyways, let's turn this to the board. If you guys have anybody have any questions or comments?
No questions.
No further. Is there anybody in the audience? And I'm not sure who everybody's here for, so.
I have one more question.
Last one.
Last one. Can we limit the peer review to the questions that are, the comments now, to the ones that are valid?
I'll answer that, and then,
Well,
yeah,
so
as the
let's
chair of
talk
this
about-
board, no, because this list has been out here for a while, and it's the same plan, you've been tweaking stuff. If a list were to come back with like 6 new items, I'd have an issue with that, just out of process alone.
Right, that's what
So,
I'm saying.
No, this is not,
and I think
it will
Stephanie would
not
too.
come back with new items.
Right, and the ones that are gonna be, the ones we answered, if they pertain to it, if the ones that don't pertain to it, I don't wanna have them review something that doesn't matter anymore.
Right. So what I was trying to say before is, I think you can get it, you know, any friction, any little conflict, get them on the phone. It's so much easier than emails. I mean, just, you know, or report to report, because, right, it costs you money and it's stress out. Just get on the phone, you know, you give, you know, talk to things and be, you know, and it could, I think it could be put to bed, so. Do you have anything else you want to say? No, was there anybody in the audience? Are we good? All right. So, continue to our next meeting. That's what we're doing, which is
Motion to
The
continue to
11th.
March 11th.
March.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.
You as well. All right. Next up is site plan review, 50 Washington Street, Wagging Tail Dog Services. You know the dog?
Not anymore.
You want one?
Funny when you voice this horse, it's all the things you right. Oh, when people's voice up, like when your horse head that goes down, like
Yeah, right, did that.
Sometimes I actually try to lighten my voice, it does, but yeah.
Been stressed.
When it's going down, I'm like, oh, yeah.
Hi, welcome. So just want to identify yourselves for the record, please, and have at us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Adam Barnowski. I'm an attorney on behalf of Julie Cardoza, Wagging Tail Dog Services. With me is Julie Cardoza, the owner and applicant, and we have Josh White to my right here, who is the project engineer. We're here relative to the proposal for a dog kennel site plan review at 50 Washington Street. This application did receive a special permit from the ZBA last month. The decision was rendered on January 24th. The appeal period expired, and that decision has been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. I did provide a memo in support of the application that lays out the background, business operations, site characteristics, etc. Essentially, this is a boutique concierge doggy daycare service. The primary function is doggy daycare with transportation, so there's going to be no drop-off or pickup of customers on location. It's located on Route 138 in the B Business Zoning District. Again, in the interest of time, I won't repeat everything that's in that memo. If you have any particular questions, happy to answer them. But I wanted Josh White to be able to go over the site plan and answer any questions you might have on that.
All right, so as you guys can.
Excuse me, sir, just please use the microphone.
Ann, could you speak up?
So as you guys can see, this is the existing residence on 50 Washington Street that they are proposing to turn into this doggy daycare. It's got an existing driveway in the front with two curb cuts onto 138. There's an existing concrete slab, which looks like was for an old garage of sorts. So yeah, that's the existing conditions plan. And this is our proposed site plan. As you can see in the front, we're gonna install two new curb cuts that comply to Mass DOT regulations, that permit applications in the process. It's gonna be a one-way, and there's 5 parking spaces, including 1 handicap parking space in the front. There's also this ramp up into the existing building. And then off of Calvin Road is the proposed employee parking where they will store their vans and will also be their location for the unloading and loading of the dogs at the beginning and end of the day. There's down in this grass area on the southern part of the site is their existing septic system, and on top of that is going to be the play areas for all of the dogs. There's various fences around creating those 3 different areas for all however they want to divide the dogs. In this paved parking area, there's a gate that will close when the vans come in, and they'll unload the dogs as they come in. And the applicant can talk about that process, as you can see, and as they submitted in their documents as well. There's a walkway that'll go into the lower part of the building, and that's going to be the main to and from the driveway. This fence, we're proposing a fence on the eastern property line, basically because it abuts in a residential area. So we want to, one is going to be a fence just to enclose the area, and then it's also going to be this acoustic fence, which provides some soundproofing. Obviously, with dogs barking, you want to minimize that to the neighbors as much as possible. So we're proposing that along the east property line. I'll just flip to the other side just for a minute. This is our grading and drainage and utility plan. Basically, the front parking lot will drain to a catch basin. The rear parking lot will drain to a catch basin, which will go into this underground infiltration system, which we understand at this point their peer review has not been completed. So once that happens, we'll be happy to talk to the reviewer and answer any questions on that. That's really it. We open up for questions at this point.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
My comments and recommendation for discussion are around the parking and then just the noise abatement. So in the description, and I'm not sure it was as, they talk about that this is not going to be a drop-off facility, that they provide a service of going and picking up the animals and bringing them, and then they bring them into the facility. But they have the parking out front. They have stacked parking in the employee area, where I think the vans are going to be parked too. There's no clear indication of what the circulation is, how the vehicles move in and out. So I think, the board should seek clarification on that. You know, what is the parking for out front? Is that necessary? Is as much, they're proposing 12 parking spaces when under the regulations, the minimum required would be 7. And then they show the acoustic fence along the easterly portion abutting the 2 residential. Actually, I think it might be 3, a small portion of the 3rd residential. And they do not show an acoustic fence on the southern property line, which abuts a business. I don't know why you require less noise abatement just because it's a business. There is some vegetation. It's mostly, I did go out to the site and look at it. It's kind of sparse along the easterly. It's mostly trees, kind of mature trees, but they're rather thin in caliber. They're not really big trees, but some are tall. And the tree line along the southern property line is also more densely populated. It looks like a mix of saplings, seedlings, and taller trees, but again, not of a large caliber. So again, it's more what's the buffer and mitigation for noise and visibility to the neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions, comments?
I had 2 questions. So in your letter to the ZBA, your application letter, you talked about waste disposal by a professional disposal company. I was just wondering, on your site plan, I didn't see, where are you storing, where does that get stored before it gets picked up? How is it stored and where are you keeping it, the waste?
So when the dogs go to the bathroom, we pick it up with pooper scoopers, and we have sealed bins in the play yard, and they go in there, and then at the end of the day, they go into a larger trash, and duty calls comes and picks up twice a week.
Twice a week. So the reason I'm asking is obviously if I'm a neighbor, you know, adjoining this, I necessarily wouldn't want those bins up against my property line on the backside of that. So that's the reason I'm asking where you might be indicating that.
Okay.
So do you have can you point on the plan to where those would be, or is that something?
We didn't really show the trash locations, but we can certainly add those.
Yeah.
We can add those to the plan.
And then the second item I have is snow removal for the back parking lot. It looks like you're paved right up to the fences for the small dog play area and the, what I'll call Sally Port, the exiting. I know what is a Sally Port, but how are you going to deal with snow removal in that area? It doesn't look like you have a place to put snow.
Yeah, so that area is tight up against the east property line as well. So our proposal would be just to, I mean, you know how they do it in parking lots, you push it as far forward as you can. So we do that, and if it got to a point where there's a lot, we would do off-site removal.
Really? Okay. You wouldn't just consider pushing the small dog play area back to give yourself some area there for snow removal?
You just have gates that you open in the winter, so otherwise the plow is going to break your fence anyway. So if you open the gates and just sort of have like a secondary gate for the dog, you can push it right in there, something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
well, I don't know, it's,
That makes sense. Yeah, that's definitely a good option.
so those are my questions regarding it.
Did the Board of Appeals have any like conditions or anything, or did they just approve the special permit?
They had
Yeah.
they did have a list of conditions. There's a maximum of 60 dogs, no overnight boarding. There's a whole list that are included in the special permit.
Did they like involve like, the neighbors and the sound or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, so there was some attendance by 2 of the neighbors. One of the neighbors that was located here and here. The acoustic fence was actually in reaction to the comments that they made. There was no opposition from this neighbor here at number 1. 18 did have some concerns about noise, and so the idea was to put the acoustic fence on the eastern boundary line. There was no opposition or comments from this property owner. and it being a business district, we didn't know or didn't believe that it would be necessary at this point to put any sort of sound buffer there. I mean, certainly there were projects you could have there as being in the business district by a matter of right that would be more noisy than a dog park. The acoustic fence was really just as an accommodation to the neighbors, just to make sure that there wasn't going to be any issues there. I think it's important in when you're considering this site plan and looking at the acoustic fence. Number one, it's a very expensive fence. It's going to cost about $11,000 in addition to the cost of the actual fence to put that up. So it's certainly, that's an expense that's not undertaken lightly considering the scope of this project. Two is the types of dogs that are going to be kept on site during the day is another characteristic to consider. These dogs are put through a 10-point examination. The behavior is very, very important to the atmosphere that they're trying to cultivate. And Wagging Tails has another facility. Barking has not been a problem. Sound has not been a problem at that facility, and they assume that it will carry over based upon this 10-point inspection of the kinds of dogs that they allow in. So to answer your question, that was where we came up with the acoustic fence on the east boundary line, and the condition is simply that we would work through that issue before this board.
Yes, yeah, I mean, it sounds like with the pickup service, that's sort of like a higher end sort of kind of service, whereas other people just would take time to drop their dog off these, like,
Yeah.
you don't hear about, I don't know anyone that has their dogs picked up, but I'm sure
Yeah.
plenty of people like that service.
We do pick them up at their house
Yeah.
and bring them in.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, that's all for now.
So the parking, how many spaces are in the front?
So there are 4 parking spaces in the front, and then there's 1 handicap parking space.
And the parking in the front would primarily be used for,
Be for employee parking. I mean, you're still gonna have occasionally somebody's gonna come by. Some customer's gonna come by at some point for whatever reason. So just to give them a handful of spaces in the front.
so the rear is exclusively for the van parking?
Yes.
And the front is just employee and or potential overflow? Okay. And so the acoustic fence is a done deal then? That's part of the conditions of the special permit?
Well, the condition of the special permit was that we would discuss the type and the scope of the acoustic fence. They were interested in having it, but it was a fairly broad or general condition of the special permit. I can get that for you if you'd like the actual language.
It's in your, I included the conditions in my report. So it says, a noise reduction barrier such as an acoustic fence or similar product shall be installed on all of the outdoor fencing areas as requested by the Planning and Zoning Board. So they put it in your,
Oh, I see, okay. And, trash, is there just regular, like, it'll just be the typical residential type bins, or is there a dumpster on site?
I have to get my own. Duty Calls is gonna come and pick up all the waste, and they told me that I have to get my own bins, and then I leave it out for them to get twice a week.
Okay, so just like regular
Yeah,
residential
that I do. Yeah,
bins,
I get on my
basically,
own.
yeah, not
Yeah.
an actual, okay.
so if I may, so you won't have a dumpster on site for the normal household type waste?
Right. Yeah, I don't need a dumpster. Yep.
Well, I was just gonna ask, and I don't know if it's, I'm assuming like it's a condition, but we have some say in terms of the fence and how the fence is implemented, it sounds like,
Well, that's
perhaps?
what yes.
So I was just
So
gonna,
the ZBA is punted to the planning board.
so I was just gonna say that it probably would be helpful to have, which you maybe already have this information, the typical decibel levels for the maximum amount of dogs, and then what the rating is for that type of fence, what decibel levels it mitigates, and given that you mentioned, Stephanie, that there's some sparse landscaping, if if you wanna even call it that, on that side where the fence is. When you were out at the site, there wasn't a whole lot there,
It's mostly
mentioned.
trees.
It's trees,
not
yeah.
like a shrub layer, whereas on the southern side, it looks like there's a lot of seedlings. And so even though they're trees, they're at various heights and levels of growth.
Well, I
So
was
it
just,
looks like it provides more of a buffer, but more particularly during summer season than it would during leaf fall.
I just was wondering, especially if, appearance is part of the concern, I'm sure, for the neighbors, in addition to the sound, which is the primary concern, just, depending on what the decibel levels are and what the rating of the fence is, like, there's other ways of mitigating sound. It could be through, a type of fence, but with certain kind of landscaping in front of it, or, that might be worthwhile to look at. Is it could even potentially, the cost of, like, I don't know, 3 rows of landscaping and a less expensive fence might do a better job potentially than, I don't know how many grades of acoustic fence there really are, and it doesn't look like there's a tremendous amount of room on the paving portion really, so you can't really do it so much there. You probably could on the, where you're closer to the house that didn't have as much of a issue, so maybe it's a moot point, but just something to consider.
Yeah, we can definitely look into some other options. If landscape would be a cheaper, better option to mitigate sound, then we'll look into that.
You could also have
What-
landscaping, oh, sorry.
No.
You could also have landscaping inside the dog area, right? I mean, it's not, the dog area is,
Yeah.
I mean, like parking lot's one thing, but a dog area can, probably nice for the animals to have some.
I just want to make sure we're not going against the ZBA decision, which I don't have in front of me, but did that specify acoustic fence?
It says a noise reduction barrier such as an acoustic fence or similar product shall be installed on all the outdoor fenced areas as requested by the Planning and Zoning
Right,
Board.
so-
So was this in response to one of
So
your
their-
comments?
Their
I think?
letter, I'm sorry to,
Yeah.
but your letter to the ZBA brought up acoustic
Right.
fence as an option.
Right.
And in my response to that, I suggested that would be a good way to mitigate any noise issues between the residential area and your area. I assume that's how we've gotten to here, and that's where acoustic fence originated, I guess. And I did look online at the cuts for acoustic fence, and it looks like a good product. I thought it had a lot of appealing characteristics, but, I mean,
Yeah, so my only concern is that it was approved by ZBA, granted on our recommendation,
Right,
or
your
our
comment.
comment. So I think what we need, before we change any details, maybe we need to see a value, of coefficient of barking.
Yeah, I mean-
But, acoustic fence is this versus, I get a little leery when I hear about 3 rows of planting, just because planting dies sometimes, and that, and we weren't at the ZBA meeting, and I think we need to be careful. There were residents that were there, or there was a board that, under the impression that we were going to require some sort of sound attenuating fence. So I just think we need to be respectful of the board's decision. I just think we need to be careful when
And I
we start
wasn't
revising stuff
suggesting,
like that.
I wasn't suggesting eliminating the fence, I would think there's maybe more than just one product of
Sure.
acoustic fence, but maybe there's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
So they may have different,
I didn't look at other
Yeah.
products. I mean, there are, but cost-wise, I wouldn't think that they would be
I don't know.
less
I don't know
money
anything
on
about
this
them, so.
particular.
Also, can I make one comment? So when dogs bark, they bark because they see something. Right now we're on a farm. They bark at the cows, they bark at the horses. With the acoustic fence, they're not going to be able to see anything. We're just going to get a play bark. The play bark is nothing like, oh my God, somebody's at the door. It's not like that at all. So they're just going to, and I'm with these dogs every day, so I know them. So we know who does a bigger play bark than the others. So with the 3 play areas, we're able to separate them. So we're not going to have the loud sounds. We're not going to have all of that. I also have calming rooms. So if they're going crazy and they're getting excited, we'll bring them into a calming room, they'll calm down, and then we'll bring them back out. So the barking is really if somebody walks by, if something like that, but they're not going to be able to see anybody. So they're not going to be barking.
Okay. So were you still going, Debbie? You
No,
said?
I'm all set.
Do you have anything, Chris?
No, I'm good. Sounds like quite the dog.
All right.
One more question.
Oh, sure, sure.
What are your hours of operation?
9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
And do you have, are you gonna be adding any lighting for wintertime for usage?
No,
at
the
night?
dogs leave by 4. So,
The dogs leave by
Yeah.
4. So you're not lighting the play areas?
no,
How about the parking lots?
no, I don't have any lights. We're back by 4:45.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just at was this site plan or some presented at ZBA?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, I guess my only, just overall, just looking at this from a planning standpoint, and I applaud you for what you want to do, and I wish you luck. But I get a little worried, and this is a business zone, but it does abut a pretty heavy residential zone. And if you look, I've spent some time going up and down, both online and in real time. You look at how the other businesses, there's a similar business right up the street, actually a couple of them. And I'm a little worried, what concerns me on this one is the van parking right in someone's backyard. I know, we're putting up a acoustic fence right at the property line, and then we've got, 3 or 4 or 5 feet, and then we've got a bunch of paving, and we've got a bunch of vans stacked right there. And I know in an ideal world, dogs don't bark, and everybody's quiet, and all your employees behave, but, people hang out by the vans, and they have a cigarette, and they talk, and this and that, and you just, and there's not gonna, maybe, I wonder if there needs to be a light out there, because there are times of the year that it's dark at 4 p.m., so, and you're parking vans right on top of each other. So I don't know, I just kinda, this is a very unique setup out back, and it just kind of concerns me where it's in the backyards of a couple people. And whether they spoke up at ZBA or not is irrelevant to me, because they may have not have been there, they may have been shy, or, the duty of the planning board. So I'm a little concerned with that. I wonder, I guess I don't understand why there's so much paving anyways. And do we realistically think they're gonna be able to stack park like that, or is it gonna become an issue that however the vans go out, Mr. Jones drives number 2, and he's always stuck behind that guy who comes in late. So maybe does it make more sense to have sort of a diagonal layout where you could actually pave less, and come in? And I don't understand, I'm just thinking about drainage, because there's an awful lot of paving areas. So, this damn computer. So behind the house, or behind the existing structure, I'm a little confused, and I can't zip between the plans. So I know there's a detail for a retaining wall, but then I also see what appears to be proposed grading goes 124, 125, 126. So I don't get what the retaining wall is doing. What's the elevation of that back driveway? It seems like it's 125-ish, give or take.
Yeah.
So why is there a 4-foot retaining wall?
I believe you're talking about this area right
Yeah.
here. Yeah. So basically, in order to get the drainage to work and the grading to work, we had to create a high point in that area. So we had to put in that little bit of a wall to raise that parking area, so we could grade the parking lot back into that catch basin. So that's why there's that little bit of a wall.
I'm just waiting for this to refresh. There we go. So the difference in grade, so the high point of the driveway is at the end of the driveway, and it's what, 126.58, I see,
Yep.
right?
Where
Yep.
Do you see 127?
The bottom left corner.
Yeah. Top of wall, 127.
Oh, right, top of wall, yeah. So what's the grade, like where test pit 4 is? What's the grade there? 126. So I guess, because your detail shows a 4 or 6 foot wall, so I just, is it just 4 feet above the ground? I'm confused. I just don't, you know what I'm saying?
I'd have to check on that detail. It could just be a.
Because I look at the driveways, 125-ish, give or
Yep,
take, right?
Yep.
And it seems like the grade is 126 down to 120. It's kind of the same. So I guess I just didn't. Yeah, I'm just curious, and because this catch basin's running everywhere, and I guess that's curbing that's run over your 3,000 tank. That's not a fence, right?
Yes, that's curbing.
Fence is on property. And then the curb cuts on 138 appear to line up with what's existing.
Yeah, they're widened a little bit just to conform with Mass DOT.
So I guess, you know, it's kind of ironic, it goes back to what we were just talking about at the car dealer, but here's an example, here we have a new site, and it's going from a house, it's in a residential area, granted a business area too, but it just seems like there's, I'm trying to save you some money, it seems like there's a ton of paving that you don't need. You know, and you're trying to think of, you know, runoff and all this, and,
Right.
you know, the ground with all the dogs, it's gonna get compressed, right? It's not gonna be, maybe putting stone up, it's still
Yeah, I
gonna
put
get,
rocks on
it's
it.
not gonna, it's gonna, just kinda gonna roll off, and that's why I was asking about the retaining wall, 'cause I'm like, well, what if you end up having, I didn't really understand the grading right behind the building, and I thought, is there a walkout basement or something, and you're gonna start to have a flooding issue there? But it doesn't seem to be, 'cause it just, I think maybe your detail is just wrong, you don't need a 4-foot wall when there's only a
Things go up
6-inch
1
grade.
foot, maybe it's just like a 3-foot.
Yeah.
3 feet in
but
the ground and 1 foot.
I
maybe.
guess I just, you know, I wish we could, I just wish we had a better solution for van parking that wasn't right on top of people's
Could they go in the
backyards.
front yard? You'd have to change your lot around.
Or they could, I mean, it has a bit, you know, or why can't they just park along the western edge?
Oh, right, yeah, yes, yeah.
You know,
That's
along
what you
the,
meant, yeah.
why can't they be closer, why can't they be closer to your building as opposed to the neighbors' houses, you know?
Like along the retaining wall, sort of?
Park
Yeah.
on this side
So the-
instead of
the
this side.
process they
Yeah,
put
angled in towards the retaining wall?
Yeah, so we
Gated area.
Yeah.
we talked
So they
with
gotta reconfigure
the applicant
that.
about this.
Yep.
But
And basically, we just,
they gotta
because they drive in and drop
Yeah.
off and unload the dogs in that area, we figured it would be easier if they were closer to the building.
And when they back out, it's gonna end up being not as close, but, yeah. Yes.
So not all the
Could
vans
you-
are there at the same time either. Some of my dog walkers take them out. So it's not all the vans are there at one time.
No, yeah.
Well, that's what, it just seemed if you had, oh, go ahead. I was just saying, if you had a park, you know, if those all came in and sort of parked diagonally,
Right.
then you don't have the issue of, I mean, you've got 2 vans blocking
Mm-hmm.
5 other vans. That's
Right.
gonna be a business nightmare, and I guarantee you're gonna change that layout. You know what I mean? Because reality, you're gonna have employees screaming, "Oh, this isn't." To your point, you know, you got, you know, Mrs. Maisel just walked. She needs to leave, and
Yeah.
she's 3 cars by. It's gonna become a nightmare.
So this is
Um,
really just for overnight parking though, because my vans, they don't all come in at the same time. I have dog walkers that take 2 vans, and then we have 3 vans that do so I have 3 transporting vans, and then 1 person takes the 4th van for dog walking. So I have 3 vans coming and going, but I have vans coming from like Westwood coming in, where the Easton vans come in before them.
Oh, so they just come in and
So
do
they
their
come
dog,
and
yeah,
go at
the
different
dog comes in and
times.
goes.
So really the only time that they're all there at the same time is overnight.
And again, it just seems like so much paved area. I'm not sure what the front area is about. I still haven't, I can understand maybe a customer coming by, an interested customer who is not, or a potential customer who wants to come and visit and see the facility, but you have 4 spaces here. This is all paved area. If these are coming and parking at the end of the day, but you only have a few in and out during the day?
the employees that are driving these vans are parking in front of the building?
Yeah, so we're gonna put their cars in the front, I'll be in the front, I'm gonna have a receptionist, her car will be in the front. Then all my drivers, you know, we're gonna,
And how many employees, because I didn't see that in the narrative?
so it's me, I'll be there, I have a receptionist, and then I have one person to 10 dogs in the play yard, but right now I only have 20 dogs, so I got approved for 60, but I don't even know if I'm gonna go up there. So that's gonna be gradual, and then just, I have dog walkers, but they take their own car, or if there's a van available, they'll take the extra van.
But the dog walkers drive to the facility and then they would take a van, or they'd drive to the facility and use their own vehicle?
Yeah, so they drive to the facility, they get keys, and then use their own car, or if there's a van available, they'll take that van.
And where do they take the dogs for walks? Like,
In the neighborhoods. We do borderline hikes.
What y'all think?
It's hard to figure out what could be better for the, I mean, you could say, well, angle the parking, but I guess they'll end up sort of parking
just
however works for them
If
anyways.
you angle the
but,
parking, I think it's gonna increase the size of the paved area.
Yeah, and I mean, would it really make it any quieter? You know, I mean, it's just the cars in the back.
No, right, I mean, I wish it was all out on 138, honestly.
that's the-
I really,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much land here, it seems a shame that we have to burden the neighborhood with, you know, it just really starts to change the flavor of the, because it is Calvin is a residential neighborhood. So that's one that we were talking about, we're adding another entrance,
Well,
right,
that
which
is a good
we don't
point.
do a lot, we don't add a lot of, you know, it doesn't
Yeah.
exist. We're taking down a lot of existing trees. So just from the base, and again, this isn't against your business at all, but just from the engineering, the base, the schematic design of this goes against a lot of what we have published in the master plan, a lot of stuff we've worked for in Easton. And it's one thing if it was the only solution, but,
That's true.
I just, you know, honestly, I just wish if that van parking area wasn't in people's backyards, I would think it would be a better design. And it wouldn't affect your business. I don't wanna sit here and tell you what I think the solution is, but that's just a concern of mine.
That butter did show up to the meeting, and
Yeah, but again, that abutter
Yeah.
isn't gonna live there forever, and again, our job isn't to keep one abutter happy, our job is to maintain the rural character of Easton, to do a lot of things that are called out in the town charter.
Okay.
A lot of things that were done in the 600-page master plan, which I don't expect any of you to, you know, but my thing, and it's, you know, it's a delicate balance when you mix business and residential. We have a whole bunch of it on 138, and 138's a very, you know, it's a unique street in that there's sections of it that are completely business, some better than others, obviously, in terms of their aesthetic. And then there's some that are very residential. This happens to be a very residential area, which has been, you know, dotted. You know, in each, like, think of, there's a kennel, or a dog daycare up the street from you.
Yep. Home away.
Home away from home.
Yeah.
A little different setup. It's kind of set up, you know, but set back, but there's nothing behind it but wetlands. So it's, you know, if there was a bunch of van parking behind that, okay, you know, but, you know, I have to think, what happens when these people go to sell their house? And people go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not only is a business owner
I'll buy
there,
it.
right up the property line, there's no more trees anymore, there's 6 vans with dog pictures. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you just, you know, you gotta be careful of these things. And so that's,
Well, could you not move up, because again, when the vehicles are parked, you have all this paved area that's not being used for parking. Can you move up your load and unload area? Would that help at all? I mean, I know it doesn't really get them away from, but at least it reduces the pavement.
Or what about using the lawn area for more from the front, and then just having a couple of spots, having less spots, having like
Yeah, I mean,
a thinner driveway in the back?
I think
You
that,
still need it.
you know, Greg's onto something here when he talks about, if you shifted play area 1 to the back where your vans are, right? You got, not have the entrance off Calvin Road, which I agree 100% is not fantastic. Pull your curb cut down to the south and get your vans up onto 138 and you know, get your access on the south side of the building. I think in the end, you might have a plan that'll save you some money, to be honest. I think a little bit of reconfiguration could actually save you some money in site development costs, and it would give, you already have a dog play area up against the neighbors, so I don't think, unless the dogs in play area 1 more,
They're smaller dogs.
but are they louder than, I mean, if
They like to
my
cuddle.
question is, you know, if you shifted a dog play area to where the vans are, is that likely to cause a greater disturbance to the neighbors than what's currently shown?
I think that is what we did talk about somewhat, is the idea that the cars would be behind this space, because otherwise, if they were moved there, then one of these play areas would have to go directly behind it, and while the vans might cause more noise, it's really only during load in and load out, as opposed to, you know, throughout the day, having dogs, you know, be right behind somebody's backyard.
But, you know, it's important, if you look the entire half of this property now, you know, if you did an analysis of the impervious area, or just the hard surface area, existing versus proposed, so in some ways, you're kind of negating the effect of an acoustic fence, because you're creating a giant, what happens when you go into a house, or you walk through a new apartment or something for sale, and it echoes, because there's no furniture, there's no rugs, there's nothing on the wall to absorb the sound. So you've got a hard structure in a building, you've got pavement everywhere, you've got all sorts of, we've got concrete walkways, we've got ramps. I mean, that entire north half of that property is a big echo machine. So, you know, because once you start taking those trees down, granted trees buffer more, you know, when they're foliages and they're not. But so that's something else that just stands out to me. And again, this is just my thought. I'm not trying to make you redesign. I just, you know, I can't. You know, I just, it's hard for me, having been on this board for 13 years, knowing all the projects we've had in similar setups, to start looking at 3 curb cuts, all this pavement, and right on top of, it's all houses there. So I just wish it was laid out differently.
Yeah.
I can't.
I mean, if
I
they were,
can't lie.
if there were more parking, like, you know, closer to the existing, you know, the parking on the other property to the south, then, I mean, what about, can the play area go more towards the lawn? Is the lawn a viable play area?
Like where test pit number, where it says lawn right here, why
Yeah.
can't that be your parking? Have one parking lot in the front,
Well, I
have
see
one right
that-
there.
Well, either have parking there or have parking just farther south too, and this have.
Well, because you have a septic system, so that's
Yeah.
not gonna play, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Because it's existing septic, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
so
existing
it's not
septic,
HD. But I mean, like, just for example, to Wayne Street, like, I look, and I can't help it, you know, I design and build things sometimes, so I'm always thinking cost, and I'm like, man, there is a ton of expense here. And sometimes, all due respect, sometimes it's easy for engineers to just start drawing stuff on their CAD, and I do the same thing, okay? But I'm like, I don't, like, you know, why is that driveway off of Calvin, why is it 23 feet wide at the entrance? You know, go down to a single barrel, you know, if it were to stay there. But I would think those 7 vehicles, right where that lawn area is, it says test pit 3. I think you could get
No,
everything.
Yeah, you might have to go
Pretty
into.
close right there. That's
what I thought,
like
right.
I said, pull the first curb cut to the south, and then do tandem vans, so one in front of the other.
Yeah, but you get septic.
Boom, boom.
Well, you can, yeah,
That's new septic though, right?
No, it's existing.
but you could go into play area too
You can still
without.
go a little bit. I mean, you can pick up a little bit.
Yeah,
Pick
go
up
into,
a
yes, go into
couple.
play area too a little bit.
But you still you could still move.
I mean, I'm assuming it's not HD, you know.
Wow.
It's on its front yard.
No, probably not.
But,
I don't know. I do agree that the entrance off Calvin Road is not fantastic. Right.
Yeah, we can look in that and see what we can do to minimize the amount of pavement and
And I mean, even lesser, if at the, you know, in a less worst case, let's say, speak badly. I mean, if a van or two or a vehicle or two, you know, had to pull in, you know, 20 feet off Calvin Road, at least that would be a, you know, that'd be a lot smaller, and it wouldn't be even as close to the house or anything, but,
Yeah.
but maybe you could fit it all in the front, you know.
yeah, I'm
when
gonna
you
flip
look at
it. Put your employee parking in the back.
Yeah,
I mean, again, I don't mean to keep revising a bit, I get it, but I'm just trying to, I just can't, it's really, I think it's important for this board to
We do-
try to balance between the residential and the business.
We do take the vans and drive them right into the play area, so I wanted to keep them off 138, and then just bringing the dogs out back, I felt would be safer for them.
Oh, just an easier way to get
Yeah.
them from one place to another.
Yeah. And it would just be the van driving in, driving out.
But couldn't you do that again if you know, all paved this area?
Or if it's, yeah, with one
I mean,
kind
I
of.
think, and I think you could reduce your paving substantially, you know, but still get everything you need. This is just, again, you know, I'm not trying. I just think it's really for the amount of paving for what you're getting. Like, look at out front, 4 parking spaces, and you cheated. You didn't even give me the 10 by 20 parking space. Our bylaws call for 10 by 20 with 9 by 18, and there's all this paving. There's so much paving out there for 4 spaces. It's incredibly inefficient. I think if you reshape some stuff, and you could still drive into all of your play areas and have the dogs come out the back and everything. I think you can still make that work. And then you'd be saving trees between.
I'm not knocking down
Less
any
stormwater
trees.
management.
Oh, there's some trees coming down, right?
No,
where
I was keeping the trees, because they do
Well, it
shading.
just says,
But right where you drive, in the back, they have to, I mean, unless this is an old Google Earth.
I don't, there's no trees there.
They're talking
There's no-
about this,
Yeah.
this row right here.
Yeah, I'm talking, out back.
There was like 3 bushes.
Yeah, okay, well, anyways, do you wanna,
Can you work on getting some?
can you like go back
tracking
and
to
just
the
take a
front?
look at it? I mean, it's.
Yeah, we'll look at the different
discuss
options that you
and
guys discussed and
See what,
So-
see what we can do to
Do you
find a
want,
middle.
can you explain it again so I understand what you want?
okay, so, well, my concern, well, let's go around the board. So my concern, and if it's just me, then, we don't, I'm just one person, but my concern is that we're taking a single-family house, business zoned, granted, but that's in a neighborhood of a lot of homes, and putting a business here, so it's okay, that's fine. We just need to, if that parking lot, if those vans weren't back there, I don't have an issue with this, okay? But that's, so I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute, so we're doing a double curb cut on 138, granted, you have one already, but now we're coming in off of Calvin Road. I can't think of a project we've ever done where we have allowed dual access commercial. Not that we can't, but I'm just, okay, so why are we doing, and then I see, so out back for what you're doing, for parking those 7 vans, and it sounds like order doesn't really matter, they're only, I hear what you're saying. Why is there so much pavement? So say I look at pavement, I think of runoff, I think of neighbors are gonna complain, because you're gonna get blamed for every wet basement they ever have now, because that's just the way it is. And I also think of noise, and just business noise, not even the dogs, just the vans coming, doors slamming, and aesthetics. People looked at a house, then granted they don't own the property, and it's business owned, and you have the right to do what you're doing, you got a variance. But for all those reasons I said, I just don't think this is a good plan, I don't think it meets a lot of what we've talked about in Easton, and I don't expect you to be up to snuff on that, but I do expect your team, even if they weren't, to go back and look at that, and to listen to that. That's just me. The rest of my board might say, no, you know what, this is fine, Greg, you talk too much as always, but I haven't heard that. But I can't, so I'm just making my piece known, and I don't, it's not our job here to design it or anything, and maybe this is the only way it can work, and then that we'll have to discuss. Maybe if I have to have off of Calvin Road, all right, well, then, design it more efficiently, because there's a lot of, look at that, there's twice, that back parking lot is twice the amount of pavement of your existing house, and that's a pretty big building. That's a lot of pavement for, and so, you don't need all that pavement. And you're right, and the plan doesn't work, you don't have a place to put the grass, or to put the snow. Because as I understand it, right, there's a fence and a retaining wall on the left side there, on the western side, and the cars are there, so, okay, you move all the vans because you got snow coming, or it snows during the day. Well, but then there's a fence right at the end of that, so you can't plow, and you're not, and then, when this comes up, you're not gonna, you know how long it takes to get someone to come in and pull out that snow with the loader?
Could be somebody with a bobcat loading it into a
And
truck
it's
and
gonna be
hauling it out, it's
ridiculously
gonna cost
expensive,
you a fortune.
and you're gonna have any place to put, so to me, as someone who does a lot of site design analysis for 40 years, I think there's a solution that consolidates both those, still get you all the stuff you want in terms of safe access for the dogs, easy drop off to the play areas, eliminates a lot of pavement, and that eliminates a lot of cost, and keeps more green out back between the business and the neighborhood. And to me, and if out back, if that was the industrial park, fine, you know what, but it's not, it's a slightly more sensitive area, and I just think we can do better. So that's the reason for my never-ending babble, but I'll be quiet now. To my board members, my fellow board members, if you guys disagree, chime in. I don't wanna, if I'm being overly
I
sensitive or something.
agree that you should take a look at it. You may come back and say, this is what works the best for us, but we'll at least take a look at it. I really think my biggest issue is the entrance off Calvin Road and the snow removal that I mentioned, but Because it does change the character kind of the street entrance there. It would be better to keep it on Washington Street.
You know, and it may be, and it might, you know, and I get it, these guys are expensive, everybody's expensive, no, you know, maybe just a quick sketch, you know, don't go and re-engineer the whole thing yet. If you come up with something that works for her, and you think, then, yeah, come in and, you know, we'd do it quick and then, you know, and then we could wrap it up at one, but.
But to your point, Greg, the best design could actually save you a lot of money in the long run.
I think so.
From a practical point, so we are waiting on peer review. To the extent that this plan changes,
We would hold up.
hold off?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, so we would want to communicate that.
certainly.
Audience here, I don't know.
Yes, so if you're going to do that, let me know tonight, so we
Oh,
can
yeah.
communicate that.
Yeah, I think we'll look at our options, definitely.
So, before I throw it out there, board members,
I have no other questions.
I agree that, I think before we accept this plan, it does seem like we'd wanna just work through whether there aren't any other better options, but one thing that does come to mind, and I know everyone's already echoed this, but I can really see Julie's point of wanting to have the dogs delivered off of the side street, and you have a system that really works. That is like a main concern of your clients, that their dogs are delivered safely, and you're right, 130, it's a busy street. Maybe there's another way to do it and still have it work, but I can see how that'd be important. I also was thinking about, if it wouldn't be so unusual, and I know that this is a commercial business, but to have like the driveway for, like if this were just a house, to be off of the side street would potentially be more desirable than having your driveway off of the front if it was just a house. So I was thinking about, does that have to be paving? Could it be gravel? Could it be just where, you know, you drive and you drop the dogs off and then there's a way of parking the vehicles, or somehow, you know, the overnight parking of the vehicles is, you know, somewhere in the front that you might be able to explore, and that, you know, I think just the nature of having you know, more of a standard looking gravel drive might be what you'd expect in a residential neighborhood anyway. I don't know, that was just maybe my thought on a way that it might look a little more homogeneous with what might be there anyway.
Would the board be okay with gravel area?
Or even
Ins-
like
instead of-
pervious pavers or something like that, that might be
It's
more.
just an alternative to pavement.
Considering the vehicular traffic that's going in and out, and not that it's a huge amount, but you're going to have these vans in and out, I don't know that gravel would be the best solution for your client. That's my only concern, you know, it's different when you've got a couple cars coming in and out a day.
Or like maybe what about like a macadam type?
It all depends on the gravel. I mean, there's some gravel parking lots, you know, I mean, you know, the laying water, they get business, people drive in, they drive out, you know, life goes on. So, I mean, it's not like, you know, your choice of materials is up to you, but also, you know, we don't want to limit you by, you know, in particular. You know.
My concern still remains just the layout. I don't know, I probably don't share Deb's thoughts. I just think, long-term, I don't think gravel would work out well for you, but if you wanna go down that road, that's, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But you know, using this layout and making that gravel out back doesn't, for me personally, doesn't change.
I mean, if you look at the layout, look at your options on the front of the street for parking. If one or two cars had to park on a curb cut on Calvin Road, that would be, in my, you know, opinion, a lot better than whatever the 6 or 7 you have there. Yeah.
So you guys all good? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that Want to say, just, if you don't mind, just, you have to grab a mic, where, just identify yourself, please, and thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Cardoza, Julie's dad. Thanks for your input. This has been a very productive meeting. It's helped out a lot. As far as the lighting and security, I can't imagine not having lighting off the back of the building and cameras. I think that's in the plan. So there will be lighting for evening lighting on the building faced out down onto the pavement, protecting the vans. That only makes sense to have some kind
Yeah,
of lighting.
so just keep in mind, just while you're on that, that just refer to our bylaw, basically you can't spill light onto
Right.
neighbors.
So it'd be
Dark sky
Right,
compliant.
correct,
yeah.
Appropriate
yeah,
fixtures
correct,
that don't.
correct. It'd have to be,
Yeah.
yeah. And we have cameras that'll probably be going in as well for vandalism. Safety is a concern of the dogs, and we want to be respectful to the neighbors as well. So in thinking of, your thinking through this process is very helpful. So let me talk openly if you don't mind. What if we narrowed down the entrance to Calvin Road, the driveway, to a normal driveway, like a 12-footer, and had like a turn area at the end where the dogs could get dropped off, then back up, pull a 3-point turn, and then relocate either the front of the building or maybe in that pavement section, use some gravel on the side where the van would park perpendicular to the adjacent lot. So the dog, because this is all in planning, so we're trying to visualize how this all would work. So it's not, we don't have 10 of these around, we don't know exactly the right format. So if a van pulled in, straight in, pulls down into the fenced area, the fence gets closed so the dogs can be let out of the vans. They go into the pen, the fence gets opened up, the van backs backwards and pulls out and parks perpendicular to the acoustic fencing while it's not being used. Other vans could be put out front. So we could actually narrow down some of this pavement in the back, which would save for sound, which would also allow for drainage to go into the ground as opposed to off the pavement. That's just an idea. So we could look at that. That would protect the safety of the animals, but also help the pavement area. And it would narrow down that 23-footer to probably a 12-foot pull-in, and then we could park some other things out front. And that would also, we could also take into consideration at that point by the snow removal. So therefore, if we had to plow that area, or if we snow blowed that area, the snow would actually go into the graveled area off to the left. If you're pulling down off of Calvin Road, go off to the left, or be plowed to the left, so therefore we'd have access to that too. And again, we could plow straight forward. So we'd eliminate a lot of the pavement, but we'd be using some gravel where the snow would be piled up or in the back. And it would also be setting up some vans on the side if we had to, put them perpendicular to the boundaries, and then moving other vans out front, or the employees moving out front. We could look at that.
Just one of the other comments, and the board doesn't talk about this a lot, but part of the concern with the paved area should be that they create heat islands. And with the gravel, you're not really attenuating that. You're not, you're still going to have, and again, it's not something the board normally considers. But
What's a heat island?
where the pavement absorbs heat and then generates it back up. So instead of having like the natural cooling of the ground and your vegetation.
So you're saying less pavement's better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that would help.
It's already better than a car sales lot, though, so.
Say that?
Was
I'm
that
sorry.
is that what was there?
What was, I'm sorry.
Just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and that would also have, we were talking about traffic
But
flow.
The other, you could come off of, you talked about coming in to a gated area, a gate that opens and then dropping off. You could do that from Washington Street as well, correct? You could
Yeah.
have a fenced area that was gated and then the gate closes behind,
Right.
so you're not dropping the dogs off until the gate's closed.
We originally had it coming off of Washington Street, and then we had some people looking at it and said, you know, there were two things we were concerned with when we moved it onto Calvin Road: the safety of the dogs and the safety of the vans going in and out of traffic. So that was a concern. So we said, okay, if we have vans coming out of Calvin Road and approaching Washington Street at a normal intersection, there's less safety hazard for the employees driving the van, as opposed to randomly pulling out of the driveway. So that was another thought that went in the process of putting a driveway in the back.
Well, hopefully entryways can be safe enough that you don't really have to, you know, have a lot of worries about anyone using the 138 entrance anyways. But
Yeah.
and maybe, I mean, that sounds like an interesting idea. Maybe if you were to provide a few sketches of a few different options that might work for you.
Sure.
Because, you know, as we've all had a few and we've bounced them around, and
Yeah,
sort of,
yeah.
sometimes it's like a little hard to like envision, you know, what the other person's thinking, but maybe if you have a few ideas.
Yeah,
that
we
can-
tried, the other thing is we tried to
accomplish
keep
the goals.
the drop-off of the vans in one spot, because to put in drop-offs that are fenced in, it's like you're putting in a room, you're fencing in this area of the room. So it's an expensive process to put two in as opposed to just one. So that was the whole idea. And then the dogs will be funneling into the second, the basement area for indoor play. So that's my idea of and that'll help traffic flow as well, I think. And so that was the reasoning for using the Calvin Road entrance. I don't know if that helps.
Well, you know, I think what Peter said, you know, I think if you could, you know, consider what you've heard here,
Yeah.
and then of course you guys have put a lot of thought into this, and
Yeah.
we're not gonna, you know, and yeah, come back with a couple of sketches, you know, like what I don't, to your 2 points there, I don't, safety wise, coming out of Calvin versus coming out of the curb cut, I think it's 6 and 1. I mean,
Okay.
it's not like Calvin's a big major road,
Okay.
but what I don't, just so I can, like, you keep talking about, like, you talk about the dog safety.
Yeah.
So that's because you're doing it in a fenced-in area? Is that like, what is the dog safety
Well,
to use, just so I can understand?
the chance that they might escape that safety area.
So it's in a fenced-in area?
Right, so the van pulls in, we close the fence behind it, the dogs are unloaded, they're released into their penned area, then that is shut, and then the gate is reopened so the van can leave.
I think, and again, just speaking for me personally, but just as you go off into sketch
Sure.
world, I'd like to see it. Can you make it all work at 138? Maybe you can. But,
Okay.
You know, get the engine paper out, get the engine
Yeah,
scale out.
yep.
And certainly to your point, yeah, I mean, even if we kept it like, reduce that pavement, just
Yeah, I
save
agree.
money, you don't need it all. And the problem with pervious pavement and crushed stone, once it gets driven over for a while, it's acting just like pavement. So when she talks about a heat sink,
Okay.
Sidewalks, it's going to act. Nothing's going to drain through it.
Yeah.
And it's just it's going to be your dogs are going to get dirty. It's going to become a maintenance nightmare for you.
Okay.
Probably more than just in my opinion. But maybe there's a solution that maybe the entrance is still off of 138 or maybe it's a small little driveway that kind of goes through, and you drive in and there's a fenced area, and then you can still, if it works better for you, if you just can't make it work doing the the whole parking area sort of on the south area, south portion of the house, the building. Well, maybe you can always shoot out through there. So there might be a way.
Almost like a loop or
Yeah,
something,
so
too.
right, almost like a loop through. So you're paving less, and you can always park on the side of it if you had to, or.
You mean the loop through the property?
Yeah, so I'll just.
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
So I look at it and I just think, okay, well, so here's septic system, so you can't
Yep.
touch, that's
Right, right.
off limits. And so I look at it, well, you can just, come up in here, and if you paved in this area, got rid of that, and you make everything work, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can, maybe you can't.
Yeah.
But then, or, as you come in, then, and I get it, you start to cross this, it's not that, but my thought was, okay, maybe you come into a drop-off area, and then you go out that way. But, I don't wanna start playing.
Yeah, no. I want to answer, but the reason why we can't do that, Greg,
Yeah.
is because the elevation on this side of the property is up. So we'd have to regrade the entire property.
Where the lawn is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, right
It's
there,
it's
there's an
a
existing
4,
retaining wall.
3 foot.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Yeah,
So then I guess, and we'll close with this.
I would love to do that.
I think whatever you come up with, I just want you to, if it turns out that you know, you may say, you know what, for this to make sense for us, because this is our business, our investment, and it doesn't make sense, you know, if you have to go out to Calvin, then it needs to be less, less commercial on the, less stark on the residential end. And it just needs to be more efficient. There's just a ton of pavement there. Because then I'm gonna say, okay, well, you know, you made that parking lot smaller, and now instead of 2 feet between the fence and the parking, there's 5 or 6 feet. Good, we can put some landscaping in there. We can do some deer-resistant big green things, so we can kind of buffer between your business and someone's backyard. You know what I mean? That's so. Anyways, so I think we're in a good spot, right? I mean, to kind of anybody else want to speak up? I don't want to. So why don't we want to continue this to our next meeting, which is the 11th, right?
Correct.
2 weeks. Does that give you enough time? Right? Yeah. And again, yeah, I would just sketch out. I wouldn't go crazy. This is kind of good. We'll just have a little informal thing, and then hopefully that next one we can agree on a direction, and then, you know, then you can, because I understand time is money, right? Then you get that plan going, and then we, you know, once that's set, you can go to the peer review, and so someone care to make a motion to continue?
Well, before we do, Julie, just to clarify, maybe, I don't know if it makes any difference to the board members too, but just because we were talking about people visualizing your business and like understanding how it operates and the safety of it. So you've got one driver, and I don't know how many dogs are in a van, but a bunch.
Be like 8.
So that whole idea of one person obviously can't necessarily control all, 8 dogs coming out at the same time. So that's your necessity of wanting to have them in that protected area and further away from, as far away from the busy street as possible. I just wanted to, because I'm sure maybe other places, or I don't know how it works, or maybe everyone's, you know, created and they go out one at a time, but in your situation, that's not necessarily the case. So I'm just saying, that's why you were trying to build in all of these extra safety measures to be further away. And I'd like to make a motion to continue to the March 11th meeting.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's knock off some meeting minutes here. January 28th. Why did we not do this last time? I know there's a reason.
Because I
Misunderstanding.
threw a
Monkey
monkey
wrench.
into the,
We wanted to include something that wasn't there.
yeah, but everybody here agreed with me at the time, so.
What was it?
And I wasn't here.
No, there was a review, it was a comment of the
I think
ZBA.
you imagined
Right.
that.
Oh, no,
I thought we even looked at
It
it.
was probably for this project.
I think you imagined
No,
that.
no, it wasn't, it was the Center Street.
Motion to approve the minutes from January 28th.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Motion passes. February 11th.
Oh, goodness.
Motion to approve the minutes for February 11th? That too soon?
You always make a motion whenever you want. Doesn't mean anybody's gonna second it till they're ready. And now we're gonna play with you, rookie.
That's fine.
I always review them with Suzanne.
Let's make them hang out.
Yeah, I'm glad. Okay,
Can't believe
second.
we made that motion.
Second.
Did we have a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Motion passes.
Hey,
All right.
things unanticipated.
Now my hand is throbbing. Chair report. I have nothing to report. I had successful surgery. Thank you. Laid on my couch all week. Chris threw things at me as he walked by my house. The foundry, you and I need to talk first, I think.
I already prepared the article
Okay.
to add the limit, 2-bedroom limit.
Okay.
Did we need more than that?
No,
It
no,
can
no,
be-
no,
it
no,
can be
but
modified.
I guess my concern was in light of the
With the meeting? No,
comments
this
that
was-
comments that came back from the AG's office. There's a point that Peter raised.
Well, this was about, remember the, limiting the bedrooms as it applied to the Queesit commercial multifamily?
So, yeah, so let's
Right,
just,
right,
so,
yeah.
schedule-wise, we're okay to
Yeah.
just kick this one more week, right,
Yeah.
one more meeting?
Yes, April 8th.
Well, we're fine, that's
Yeah.
why Suzanne.
Yeah, so let's just do that so
yeah.
we can talk,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then we can circle
Yeah.
back to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Board
Yeah.
signatures within, zoning prioritization.
right, so this is what zoning do you wanna work on for, we talked about, looking at zoning for the Five
Yes.
Corners area, also looking at, zoning for Washington Street in a couple of areas. That seemed more like a longer term, like not an immediate need, because even though development's occurring, it's not, you're not getting a lot of pressure with a lot of, maybe unintended consequences, but maybe the Five Corners district. And from a budgeting standpoint, I just wanted to start thinking about that, so, because we talked about contracting.
Yeah, I got shot down on budget.
You got shot down.
Me and my big mouth. I'll let you take a bite at it. But, yeah, so, I'm trying to think, 'cause you know, with my physical encumbrance over the last month, we really haven't talked, but, so, at one point, we talked about maybe a fall town meeting, like Five Corners, and maybe
Right.
Village Business District, I was thinking, just.
Yeah, that's right,
You know,
yeah.
just those two, I think, is in our bailiwick, you know, what are you
Yeah.
guys laughing at? And,
We're
so,
listening intently.
so I think those two, right, was what we'd work on,
All right, so.
maybe for fall town meeting, I mean, you know.
All right, so would the board be in agreement if you and I got together and started talking about this and fleshing this out, so?
Yeah, I think, you guys okay with that? I
Absolutely.
mean, so what we've talked, you know, because I'm thinking, you know, you did the charrette, I know there's the presentation, in fact, next,
For
7th,
ones
whatever
that
day
you
that
guys
is.
That's-
did
oh,
not
okay,
agree
so
to vote
March
on, you still sign them, I imagine?
Yeah, you can say.
Yeah.
So March 7th,
Unless you write
March-
it one.
Just curious.
hey,
You need that hammer.
Business comes first.
Okay, go
Suzanne,
ahead.
you have them signing too fast. March,
No, she didn't do it, I did it, it's
Okay.
my fault.
March 7th at 7:30 a.m. at Stonehill in the, I think it's the Cleary Dining Hall at the Roach Commons, where the Economic Development Council is presenting the Queesit Commercial District Economic Development Strategic Plan. You've all been
Email about
invited.
that, yeah.
Anyone who can make it, we'd
would
love
there
to
be any
see you
food?
there.
I'm going.
There
but
is,
it-
yes.
Yeah, see, Stonehill usually,
Breakfast will
usually
be
pretty
served,
good.
huh?
Well, I think
7:30?
I think it's gonna be
Seven.
like a concert.
That's
I know.
Monday,
On Monday?
Monday
It's-
morning?
No, it's a
No, I think it's like
Thursday,
a
right?
Tuesday or something.
Oh,
So
it's
I'm in New Orleans
I'm
for the
sure
4th, which is a Tuesday.
Better be a Thursday.
I think it's a Thursday.
It is
Yeah, it's a
Thursday.
Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
Thursday morning.
So, the intent there is to share the findings, again, with the board members, also with the business community in that area, and then the action plan. Because a lot of the action items that are being recommended, even though a lot of them require infrastructure improvements, like sidewalks, of course, and doing something, you know, maybe some road diets to reduce the number of lanes so you can get bicycle lanes and things like that, streetscape improvements. A lot of it is a sense of place, creating a sense of place and arrival. And again, while, you know, the town can do some of that, it really takes the business community to get involved. And a lot of the action items revolve around getting the business community involved. So we're seeing this as a first step into possibly getting that group together on an ongoing basis and actually taking action. Then, the first Five Corners District Improvement Financing Public Outreach outside of the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
What's the acronym for that?
DIF. Yeah.
Seems like you cut a couple words out of that.
Yeah. I was doing my little presentation for my husband that I did for the Board of Selectmen. He kept saying, "What? You keep saying DIF. What's DIF?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I better explain that up front." And we've talked about that, and again, just very briefly, this is a tool that allows the town to define a district like the Five Corners district where they're going to make infrastructure improvements like the sewer that is going to spark or is intended to spark development that wouldn't occur otherwise because you're limited in the district. The lack of sewer really limits a lot of development in that area, desirable development like new restaurants and housing, those type of things. And then set aside a portion of the projected new growth revenues, not your base evaluation, that still goes to the general fund, but your new growth, and set it aside to pay for that infrastructure improvement. So this is being presented at town meeting, and of course, you know, we would like to see it pass, so we're doing on the 12th at 7:00 p.m. at the VFW, and you'll get an invitation to this as well, a presentation to the residents and business owners in the Five Corners district to talk about the DIF and, you know, again, get them to be advocates for it as well across the community. Then we just settled that date today. We'll be looking at another meeting, probably early April, for the public in general. So everyone will be invited to that again to
You said the
talk about
12th
it.
at 7?
The 12th
At the
at
VFW?
7 at the
Right up the street
right
from
down
you.
the street. You
Oh,
can walk.
look at that.
Right.
Chris, we could get hard-boiled eggs and draft beer.
That's right. I love that place.
Big
It-
beans, don't forget the big
Might
beans.
not
It
wanna say
was
that.
different than
Big
some of the
beans with that
VFWs
breakfast.
I've walked into. I was,
Yeah,
Yeah,
What's
it
the name
is.
of, what was the school name?
I
Anybody?
don't remember. The,
Fine.
like,
VFW?
Rockland Street School?
I think it was Hawkins. I think it was Hawkins, but I better be
Yeah.
careful. Ed Hands might be watching this.
Yeah.
You know.
So, again, you'll get invitations to that too, and we'd love to see all the board members there.
Okay.
How long do you expect the meeting on Thursday to be?
The meeting on Thursday, probably an hour to an hour and a half. It's
Okay.
really, I'd like to get through it pretty quickly. The findings, I think we can go through,
Mm-hmm.
and then it'll be going through the action items. And I'm sure a lot of business owners are going to be there and will want to get
Right.
going.
So what time does that start?
7:30?
7:30
On the 7th?
a.m. on the 7th.
And so would you say you thought it would roughly be
Till 9?
Like,
a lot of hours?
yeah.
Everything you got?
I think that's it.
Bring us home, big guy.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? My hand's been up the whole time. Thank you.